be restored and refreshed. And so that was what typically you were served food because you were traveling. But in about 1765, restaurants came into being, the first ones that were just strictly to serve food, and the word comes from to restore. And even since as far back as the 16th century, restorative is a word used in the culinary world to referring to soups and stews. And so I think that's just so interesting to me. What do you think of on a cold, wet, chilly winter day? What do you want? You want, like, ooh, there's just a good bowl of soup. So, and I think it's also funny that chicken soup really has a healing connotation. I remember Brad's grandfather lived with us for a while, and every time I served chicken soup, he just really, really loved it, and he said, this is the Jewish penicillin. And evidently in the Jewish realm and world, chicken soup is known to be very healing. And I actually did a little research on that, and it's not just an old wives' tale or just something that, I guess when you have a cold or a flu, just eating something warm is about the only thing that appeals when you have chills. But they've actually found there is restorative qualities in chicken soup particularly that has anti-inflammatory, particularly to your mucous membranes. And potatoes and carrots, if you put those vegetables in, lend vitamin C. And they are really finding that chicken soup and other broth type soups are actually truly restorative. And so when I was thinking about that and just thinking about sharing food with others and having a bowl of soup, what does the word restore mean? The word restore means to return to the starting point. So like that wayfarer, that traveler stopping at the inn, he's tired, he's weary from his travels, a bowl of soup and a place to sleep restored him and refreshed him. And the Lord's just really been speaking to me this year, two words, hope and encouragement. And I just think that's what we as God's people, as Americans need. We need to be restored to a place of hope and encouragement. And I was reading this morning, interestingly enough, I had looked up some Bible verses thinking, and I picked out one, and it's Psalm 51, where David says, restore to me the joy of my salvation. And that's a great one. But my Bible reading yesterday, when I opened it up, I thought, no, this is the verse I want to share. And it's actually in Matthew 5, starting with verse 13. It says, you are the salt of the earth, but if it has lost its taste, its strength, its quality, how can its saltness be restored? And I just thought, what a pertinent verse, that we are the salt of the earth, we are the light of the world, but how can we be restored? Soups and stews can restore our physical body, but there is only one place that I can think of, and that's at the feet of Jesus and alone time with God and a personal relationship with Him where we can become refreshed and restored. And that leads me to Matthew 11, verse 28 through 30. Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden and overburdened, and I will cause you to rest. I will ease and relieve and refresh your souls. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. I am gentle and humble and lowly in heart, and you will find rest. And that word rest means relief and ease and refreshment and recreation and blessed quiet for your soul. For my yoke is easy and is not harsh or hard or pressing, but it's comfortable, gracious, and pleasant, and my burden is light, and it's easy to be borne. So how does that salt be restored? How does that saltiness come back? By coming to Jesus and hearing from Him and being restored, that place of rest and comfort and ease and refreshing for your soul. And then it goes on to say, you are the light of the world, a city set on a hill that cannot be hidden. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. So as we are restored, then we can restore and refresh and bring refreshment to others. So I'm very excited this morning to teach you about soups and stews, because there is some physical refreshing there that you can share with other people, with your family, with yourself, and that can refresh and restore them. And then as you share and become the light and the salt of the world, you can share that refreshment as well. So with that being said, we're going to start our soup. You are going to see us use pressure cookers today. You can, of course, make soup or stew or stock conventionally in a regular cooker, but I'm going to tell you something. There's something about a pressure cooker that makes soups and stew making very, very easy. Not only is it fast, but it really, the flavor of the soup and stew is so increased because under pressure, those flavors are infused. And what would take you normally all day to achieve that flavor and that quality of that soup and stew can now be done in a pressure cooker in maybe 5-10 minutes. Caleb's going to make a stock for you in just a minute. 20 minutes, 25 minutes, which he said, wow, I used to just have to cook this all day to make this stock. And that's what I love about pressure cooking. Not only is it fast and easy and infuses the flavor, I've never tasted chicken soup any better than what comes out of the pressure cooker, just the way it draws those flavors out. But also, what I love about pressure cooker, and any of y'all that have come to the pressure cooking class, you've heard me say this probably a million times. A day like yesterday started off cool and chilly, and you're thinking, wow, I would love some soup tonight. And by the time you get there, you're like, the windows are open, the doors are open, you're shedding the coat, and you're like, no way do I want soup. So you scratch that, and or you serve it and everybody's sweating and really fanning. But what I love about this is you can decide this afternoon when it's still wet and chilly, you can go, okay, this is a good soup day. So it lets you be able to cook that soup this afternoon after it has stayed chilly, instead of having to decide in the morning and then end up in the evening in the spring or fall of our Georgias, and it's 77 degrees and sunny, and no one wants soup at that point. So I'm very excited to bring on Caleb. He is going to show us how to make our own stock. And any book you get on pressure cooking will probably tell you that is one of the best uses of a pressure cooker, is making your own stock or your broth, so you can use that as the base in your soups and stews. So I'm going to give it to Caleb. I'll stand here as your trusted assistant.
My lovely assistant.
This is my son, Caleb, my oldest son, Caleb, and whose birthday was Tuesday, Valentine's Day. And these are my lovely flowers from my lovely husband. I left them here to share with you because I was spending so much time since Tuesday here. I'm going to take them home tonight. So there you go. Can y'all see okay over there? Maybe I need to move them back just slightly. All right.
All right. Well, we're going to start, I guess, in the beginning of every good soup and make some stock from, actually what I have here is whenever I'm cutting onions, carrots, celery, anything like that, I save all my leftovers and scraps.
I'm going to bring it back in the
pieces and just throw them into a gallon Ziploc bag and keep them in the freezer until I'm ready to make stock with them. So
this is your trash. This is what you normally throw away. All the skins and the ends and the butts, put it in a bag. They have great flavor there.
And I even save the skins off the onions. They add a real nice dark, rich color and flavor to your stock. So we're just gonna put all this stuff into the pot.
Let me see, let me get you in the overhead. I'm throwing off your groove here.
You really are.
Sorry. But I got to get, there you go. Okay. That's
all
good.
Right, there we go.
Okay.
And that bag I was short on some carrots, and you want a good kind of even mix of carrots, onions, celery. So I've got some fresh carrots that you can just add to that too. So the only thing you might want to not save is maybe some of the root end off of some celery or something, so I'll just trim that off. You want to make sure you kind of scrub it up a little bit so you don't have any dirt or grit in there either. So just chop that up a little bit. All right. Now I'm going to make this a chicken stock because it's going to be the base for my Italian wedding soup. So what I have here is last week we cooked a whole chicken and deboned it, took all the meat off, and I just took the bones and threw them into a bag and saved them in here. So I'm just going to put those in there also, because the gelatin will cook out of the bones in your stock and add some really nice flavor. So this is a 10-liter pressure cooker. So I'm going to add about, what, six quarts of water to this. Is that right? Basically, you just want to cover it with water. Use your biggest pot. And
this is what is referred to as a stock pot. A stock pot is just exactly what it's referring to. You want a taller, more narrow pot, not like a Dutch oven that's wide and more shallow. You want the height so you can get a lot of water in that pot to totally cover the vegetables and the bones or whatever you're cooking. That's why it's called a stock pot, because that's what you're needing to be able to put a lot of liquid in there to cover. You may have an 8-liter Dutch oven that says it's the same size, but if it's wide and shallow, you're not going to be able to get as much liquid in there. Does that make sense? Or you're not going to be able to cover the vegetables completely that you're using with the liquid that you have. So any of the pressure cookers, when you're making stock or soup or stew or whatever, and you've got liquid in there, the rule of thumb is 2/3 full. And there's usually a mark in the Fisslers, and in most pressure cookers, there's a maximum line of filling it with the liquid and the water. So,
and with your stocks like this, you want to start out with cold water, because it really draws the flavors out of what you have in here. So I'm just going to take that and about 2 teaspoons of salt, because that'll also help not only flavor your stock, but draw some more of the flavor out. Sure. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
the bones.
Sure.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Sure. The skins, the bones, all of that have a lot of flavor in them.
Yeah,
so save your bones, even if after you've cooked it and picked all the chicken off. Save your bones. They can still be used. They have a lot of flavor in those bones.
And even when trimming, your chicken breasts, you trim some of that fat and that the vein off and all that. You can save all that. Now, if you end up where you have a lot of fat, a lot of skin that you've saved and you throw it in there, and you end up with a lot of fat on top, just take a ladle and skim some of that off. You're still going to get a lot of flavor into your broth, but if you want less of the fat, just skim it off the top once you've cooked it. Okay. So what we're going to do now is just put the lid on this, bring it up to pressure, and let it cook for about 25 minutes, and then we'll just let it naturally come down, release the pressure, and we'll strain it and put it into our soup. Okay,
so what's going to take a while now, because there's 12 cups of or actually 24 if we use about 6 quarts of water. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of cold water in here. So with your soup and your stocks, like Caleb was saying, you want to start with cold water. So put your chicken in there. If you're cooking a chicken, which I'm going to do in just a minute with the stew that we're going to make, put your chicken in there, cover it with your cold water, and start chopping your vegetables and throwing them in. Go ahead and let that be heating when you're doing your chicken and things like that. But now your stock here, cover it with the cold water, let it just come up to a boil. Oh, you want to put the bay leaves in?
Yeah, I forgot my bay leaves. I'm going to add a couple bay leaves.
And that's just really for flavor. Whatever seasoning you like. If you want to use thyme and basil and oregano and rosemary, all of those are really good seasonings. You can season it up. But if you want just pretty much just a plain broth that's not seasoned, so then you're not bound to what you're going to use it as the base of. Do you understand what I'm saying?
And there was even a few the stems from some thyme in there, and rosemary in my scrap bag that I'll save. And just really I would only save your scraps from carrots, onions, and celery, though. You don't want broccoli stems and tomato peels and all that stuff in there. I really just like to stick with those because that's the base of most soups and stocks. So, all right.
Okay, so we're going to just let this cook here, and I probably am going to move it to the back because it's going to take a while. Those of you that have not seen the Fissler pressure cookers before, just to give you a little education on the Fissler pressure cookers, I love them. They're made in Germany. They're just a very quality pressure cooker. People ask me, well, I've seen cheaper ones out in the store. I just really don't know. I know that I've had other brands, cheaper ones, over the years before I started using either the Kuhn or the Fissler, and it still took several hours to cook beans. And I don't know why they wouldn't. You would think if it's under pressure, it would seem to cook. I know things just still took a long time. Whereas I can cook dry beans, brown rice, whatever. Dry beans will cook in 20 minutes as opposed to several hours in a pressure cooker. But the way the Fissler pressure cookers are designed, you have a little circle here with an arrow, and you have a little orange dot here on the handle. You just match those up, lock the lid into place. It has a little locking lever on the handle, so you want to make sure you push the lever back. That locks the handle into place, and now that engages the little valve that's here in the handle that will release the oxygen and the air that's in the pressure cooker and allow it to come up to pressure. If you don't push that lever back, it won't come up to pressure, and you can basically use the pressure cooker as you would any other pot. It won't go up to pressure. So we're going to lock that into place, and I'm going to move my pot back here to cook. The nice thing, we're cooking on these Fissler induction burners that are just very, very handy to use, and a nice safety feature of the burners is when you take the pot off, it automatically turns itself off. So what we're going to do now for you is I'm going to get our green chicken, not green chicken, I can't ever get that right. It's the green chili. We really don't want green chicken. That would be no, that you would want to throw away. So we're going to do our green chili chicken stew for you. This is one of my family's absolute favorites. Traditionally, I serve it in bread bowls. One basic recipe in the cookbook will make 4 nice sized bread bowls, and you can cut the top out and scoop the insides out and serve the soup in that, covered with cheese. Just really, really delicious that way. But over the holidays, I came across a corn pudding recipe that my family has totally fallen in love with. So for the soup and bread class, we decided we wanted to serve you this corn pudding. So we're going to get our chicken stew going, and then we'll get our corn pudding going. I'm going to use some melted butter for the corn pudding, and so I'm going to go ahead and stick those in the oven while it's preheating. So I've just got my stick of butter. Go ahead and put it in my casserole dish. That'll do 2 things. It'll melt my butter and grease my pan at the same time. So I'll just melt the butter in here and pour the butter out when I'm ready to use it. So I'm going to go ahead and stick it in the oven here. And it can be melting. You don't want to forget it and let it burn, but we'll go ahead and do that. All right, and then let's get our chicken soup going. Like I said, I cannot think of anything much better than chicken soup in the pressure cooker. It is the tastiest, most flavorful soup that I think you can make in the pressure cooker, and I never have to use bouillon or any of those things anymore when I make my own chicken soup. So I'm going to go ahead and get my chicken in. And you could use a whole chicken in this recipe, and when I'm cooking chicken, though this recipe says 2 chicken breasts, like I said, you could certainly do a whole chicken. Whenever I cook chicken, if I need cooked diced chicken meat, whether I'm making chicken salad or fajitas or enchiladas or whatever I need cooked chicken for, I always make chicken soup. I mean, don't waste that opportunity. So even though the recipe says 2 chicken breasts, I'm going to go ahead and put in, I've got 6 here, and so I'm going to go ahead and make some broth and have some cooked chicken here with this. And I'm not going to follow the recipe exactly because I might need a little more than the recipe makes. So instead, but I don't want to double it like I did one class and ended up with like more than the pot would hold. But so I'm going to just add a little extra ingredients here. Not a full double, but just a little bit more. So I'm sanitizing my hands with grapefruit seed extract after handling the raw chicken, just to get my hands clean here. Okay, so we've got our chicken breast. We're going to do 8 cups of cold water. And of course, beef stock, you can make the same way. You could have taken that bag of goodies that Caleb had and add your, just go to the butcher or the meat department, ask for some bones, some beef bones. Or when you, even if you've cooked some beef or roast or something like that and you have the bones left over, throw them in a bag, save them. Don't discard anything. So, so now I'm going to add my salt. And a little pepper. And you see I did put the conventional cooking method and the pressure cooking method. And yeah, I'm going to put my onions, right? Yep. My onions, my bay leaves, compliments of my dear friend here. These are my bay leaf tree over here in the corner. And some carrots. Nope. And my potatoes. Okay, and this is a 8-liter pressure cooker, and this is almost up to the maximum line. So this recipe does very nicely in an 8-liter pressure cooker. So again, I'm going to match up my little circle on the lid with the red dot here, lock my lid into place, and lock my lever so that it will come up to pressure. I'm going to just move this one over here. And while that is cooking, while this is coming up to pressure, I'm going to get our corn pudding started. And you could go ahead and add your seasonings there if you want to, but because I cooked some extra chicken in there, I didn't necessarily want the cumin and those seasonings on the chicken because I don't know what I'm going to use it for. So, like I said, I don't waste a cooking in the pressure cooker when it comes to broth and chicken and things like that. I go ahead and cook it, and then I have it to make chicken salad or whatever else I want to make. Yes? With a soup, it probably not. And with the breasts, I'll probably only cook them about 10 minutes. With a whole chicken, like a 3-pound chicken, I normally cook 15 to 20. But with that much broth, normally your potatoes and carrots only need 3 to 5 minutes to cook. But I find with soup, it doesn't really matter. And with that much broth, it's not going to totally overcook them that they're just going to fall apart. If I were cooking like a pot roast, a roast that takes 45, 50 minutes to cook, yes, I would usually cook my roast about 40 minutes, bring the pressure down, then add in my carrots and my potatoes, and then pressure them for 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, but with soup, I don't find it really matters. Just go ahead and dump it all in. And the nice thing about cooking in a pressure cooker, if you wanted to add rice or something, or a grain or something like that, it doesn't take hours and hours and hours to cook the meat till it's done. So you can add your rice right in there, or your kamut. I love kamut in chicken soup. That is my favorite. And you can add it right along with the chicken and the water and the broth and cook it right there with it. So if I were making just a pot of regular chicken soup, I would go ahead and put my rice or my kamut or my grain right in there and cook it so it gets all that great flavor from the beginning. And that's why I go ahead and add my vegetables, because I want them to have the nice chicken flavor instead of adding them at the end. You could do it either way though. either way you want. Okay, so I'm going to set this back for right now, and we're going to make our corn pudding. Since discovering this recipe, I've probably made it 6 or 8 times since Christmas. In fact, we had it for dinner last night, and what I love about it is I actually had it for breakfast this morning. Just a little plate. I heated it up and just had corn pudding. It's absolutely delicious. My favorite way to serve it is make the corn pudding and serve it as the base and put my chili over the top of the corn pudding. When you taste it, you will fall in love with it. And my daughter, when she got home from work last night, she came in and she was so exhausted because she had taken the GED all day and then gone to dance and taught dance class. She came in and she was sitting there, and I don't remember what we were watching on TV, and she kept going, "That corn pudding's in there. I really want some corn pudding. I know it's in there. I just really," she wanted someone to get up and go get her some corn pudding. She was really wanting this corn pudding. So you will love this recipe. Very, very easy. I forgot to get my blender. Get it out. Okay, and I discovered that if you double the recipe, I discovered this last night, a 2-pound bag of frozen corn works perfectly to double. It's exactly what you need to double. So about 1 pound for a single recipe if you go to the store. And it calls for fresh corn, but when fresh corn's not in season, I just use the frozen whole kernel corn. I've never used the canned. I don't know if that would work very well or not, but anyway. So all you're going to do is you're going to take 2 cups or 1 cup of the 3 cups, and I'm doubling this, so I'm going to take 2 cups of the 6 cups. Do you understand what I'm saying? The recipe calls for 3 cups of whole corn, and you take 1 cup and put it in the blender or a food processor. We'll just save that for our mixing here. So I'll just go ahead and dump the rest of my corn in my mixing bowl. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to crack it calls for 2 eggs. I'm doubling the recipe, so I'm going to do 4 eggs. Just dump it right here in the blender. It's so easy to mix up, and it's just wonderful. And in fact, at home, I probably would have gone ahead and soup is so fast to make in the pressure cooker. Get your corn pudding going first, and then come back to your soup, or especially if you're doing chili or something like that, because the corn pudding takes about 35 to 40 minutes to cook. So now I'm gonna puree this. My butter's looks like it's almost melted. Go ahead and give that a little blend, and then we're going to put our butter in. When you melt your butter this way, you just don't want to forget it and let it burn. But see, now I've got my melted butter, and my casserole dish is greased at the same time. All right. So there's my butter, and you just puree it. And it's not going to be totally smooth. You're still going to have some chunks there. But now what we're going to do is going to take our mixing bowl and just mix the rest of your ingredients. So I've got my eggs, my butter, and my corn in here. So now I just need my sour cream. Not a low-fat dish, for sure, but very delicious. Got my, it only calls for 1/2 cup of your cornmeal. I just used popcorn and milled that in the mill. And then my cheese. And I used our yogurt jalapeno cheese today. I'm going to reserve just a little bit to sprinkle on top. And then just going to add our puree here. This is our mega blender that I absolutely love. It's built like a food processor, but made like a blender, so it's easy to clean and just so much more versatile than either a blender or a food processor. Like whatever you can do in one or the other, you can do. You know, if you need a blender for some things and a food processor for others, you can use this for either one. It's gonna get my salt. And I think I added it to your recipe. I thought it needed just a little sweetener to bring out the flavor. It's kind of a cross between a couple of recipes that I've seen. My mother-in-law actually makes a really delicious corn pudding, but it's very, very sweet. And it uses like a box mix, and she makes it at Christmas time. So I was looking for a way, okay, how can I duplicate this? And this is pretty close. So to get the little bit of sweetness that's in her recipe, I add just a couple of tablespoons of honey. I think I added that to your recipe. Doesn't it say that in there? I thought about that last night when I was making, we had corn pudding last night and chili. Because I actually had to, I was going to make chili for you in the class today, and I was trying a new recipe, and we decided we didn't care for it, but so that's what we had for dinner. This is the sage honey. You want to use a mild honey here. If you use one of the stronger honeys, you're going to really, really taste the honey flavor. You could certainly use agave if you want, but I always try to use honey where honey will work. Just always. Honey's the only real unprocessed sweetener that God has given us. So I always try to use honey where honey will work. So now I'm just going to stir this together. See how easy that is? Stirring everything together except the Parmesan cheese. Okay. That looks good. Making sure that honey gets totally stirred in. That's the only thing about honey. It's a little cold today, so it's a little stiffer. So you just want to make sure the honey gets completely incorporated so you don't end up with a blob somewhere that, whoa, that bite was sweet, and the rest of it's not. So, but no baking powder, soda, or anything. Just the leavening of the eggs will make it fluff up. And so I'm just going to divide this between my two dishes here. A strong honey, wildflower. Darker the honey, the stronger the flavor. See the difference in the buckwheat and the sage. Sage, tupelo, and clover are probably your mildest honeys. Very good question. Her question was, what's considered a strong honey? Your dark ones, orange blossom, buckwheat, wildflower, clover. Those are going to be your, not clover, I'm sorry, gallberry, your dark honeys. So your mild ones will be your sage, tupelo, and clover. Okay? So I'm just going to, because I've doubled this, I'm going to divide this between the two bowls, two dishes, I mean. It says to cook it in about a 2-quart casserole, and I find that this little 8.5 by 11 or whatever, this little smaller, not the 9 by 13 Pyrex dish, but the little smaller version here works really well. And then you just spread it out. This will become one of your family's favorites. And like I said, excellent, excellent over chili or under chili. What? Oh, the can of whole chilies, which I didn't use them because the I put it as optional there, but the little 5 ounce or whatever, let me show you what size. This is what size they usually come in. Okay, so it's a 4 ounce, 4.5 ounce. But I use the cheese has the green chilies in it, so I just didn't use them. You could certainly kick this up a big notch if you wanted to put some jalapenos in here. I don't find that the green chilies are particularly flavorful or spicy or anything like that, so since the cheese had it in it, I just didn't worry about putting it in. So I'm going to just sprinkle it with the Parmesan. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, you know, I thought about that yesterday. Her question is, corn is one of the most genetically modified food groups out there. Of course, our grains here are not, and the organic is not. I looked for organic frozen corn, and I didn't find one. So I kind of thought about that myself yesterday, and I'm going to look into that some more. You know, I just don't know. I did buy an old variety. This was Silver Queen or whatever, and it actually said that that's what it was, and that's an older corn variety. So I don't know. I'm going to have to, but I thought about it yesterday when I went to the store. I was like, this is interesting. I know the Becker's dry corn and popcorn, the organic is not. And I know that when you, that's one thing about organic produce and grains and things like that cannot be genetically modified. You're pretty safe if you'll go with the organic. But like I said, in the frozen food section, I didn't see an organic corn option, so I did go with the older variety of corn that I knew of. That's not to say it was safe. I'll have to do some research on that, and maybe, huh? Oh, yes. Well, I was just at the regular grocery store yesterday, and that's why I didn't find it. But I did, like I said, I went with the older traditional. I mean, Silver Queen is an old variety of corn. So I felt pretty good about that. But that was a very good question, and that was one that I kind of came up with yesterday as well, going, okay, wait a minute now. I wasn't thinking about the corn, the whole corn I was putting in it. And of course, in the summertime, when you can get homegrown and community grown corn that you know your farmer and what they're using and what seeds they're using, that would be great to buy the corn and put it up and to make dishes like this. So our corn pudding is ready to go in the oven, and it's going to bake at 350. Okay, and our chicken is still coming up to pressure. It's starting to steam here, so it's going to take just a little while. I need Caleb. I bet he forgot his bread, and I'm wondering if he wants to go ahead and roll his bread out so it can be rising. So I'm going to, yes ma'am, that's what we're here for. I'm going to set the timer here for 35 minutes. And typically, that's about how long the soup will take. So I can have soup and corn pudding on the table, usually within an hour, under an hour. And depending on what soup I'm doing, chili, you know, as fast as I put the corn pudding in, then start my chili, and while the corn pudding's baking, I set the table and the chili's just simmering, or I pressure it for 5 minutes or so. But a potato soup and the broccoli soup, the cheddar soup that I'm fixing to make for you, is ready in 15, 20 minutes. So it's really, really nice. Someone had a question. Hang on. Yes, go ahead. She asked when I ground my popcorn on the mill. No, popcorn is so small, I didn't need to go to the coarser setting on the grain mill. So I just I mill everything just to, kind of straight up. I say the 12 o'clock position, unless it's the big field yellow dent kind of corn, the big kernels, or the big kidney beans, or some of the big beans. But most everything will go through on the in the straight up position. Forgot about your bread. You want to roll your bread so it can rise, and then I'll do the broccoli soup.
Well, I got this one on proof over here. So
okay. All right, but I just thought you might want to go ahead and roll. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
The positioning of the casserole in the oven, I noticed it's on the lower.
These are convection ovens, so it doesn't really matter where I put it, but like at my oven at home, I put it on the top. And while he's rolling out bread, I actually don't think we have it on the convection setting, so I'll probably shift that around. So yes, you want to cook it where you normally bake casseroles, in your middle to higher, okay? All right, well, he's going to roll out the bread for you. Why is that? Hello. Kind of. There we go. Huh? Not today. No, not today. Oh, no, that's not flour. That's sucanat with honey, powdered. Okay. Yeah, that's hot. Just leave it right there. I'll get it in a minute. Hey, can you shut that? Just shut that. And I'm going to put, and then open the bottom one for me. Oop. Okay. He took it off. Don't take your mic off. Just turn it off. Pause for station identification. Thank you for coming to the Bread Beckers today.
there we go. Is that better? All right.
Do you need a little oil?
I already got it.
Okay.
Thank you. Hey, would you make me an egg wash?
Yes, I will.
All right, this is the basic dough recipe, but what I did is I added, and it shows in your handout, some Italian seasoning, some garlic, some balsamic vinegar, and some Parmesan cheese.
Do you use the whole egg or just the white?
Just the white. Now I'm gonna braid this into a 3-strand braid. So I'm just gonna separate this into about 3 even little logs here. Roll them out just a little bit.
Okay, you understand the directions in your handouts. Back on the very first page, because we meant to do this as soon as he finished the stock. This is to the basic recipe in the Bread Becker's cookbook, that very basic one, the very first one. That's what the changes you're going to make are listed right there. And also the bread we're going to serve you with the broccoli cheddar soup. That's the pumpernickel variation. But so he's just braiding it here.
And tuck your ends under so they don't come apart.
You start with any particular leg?
No, I usually start with my left and go over the center one. And then back
Just
across.
like you braid hair,
Yep.
left or anything. Left over right, right over left. So, and then we're going to put it on our baking stone. I love the way these stones cook. These are our new Emile Henry baking stones. And then to give a nice color to the dough, to the finished bread, we're going to do, and if you're going to sprinkle any seeds, this gives it the glue to stick those seeds on. So I just took an egg white and mixed it with just a little bit. Not this one. See, oh, this one doesn't have an X.
Oh, yeah.
These are a lot more sanitary. You can clean that better than this.
What did we use for years and years and years before silicone? I don't know.
I know.
All right. So I'm just going to give it a light little egg wash here. Like Mom was saying, it makes a nice crust, gives a nice color.
Egg white and just a little bit of water and just slightly beat it. Not till it's totally, you know, beat, but just a little frothy. And then you just baste it on. That'll give a nice shine and golden color to the loaf once it's baked. And it also gives some glue to stick the poppy seeds, sesame seeds, or whatever topping, oatmeal, whatever you want to put on it. So just a little egg wash there. I usually save it, put a little milk over it, and just put it in the refrigerator. And then tomorrow when I make scrambled eggs, I'll mix it up. So, you know, just mix it in to have a little yolk with, you know, a little extra yolk. Just a way to use it. Or throw it in my bread the next time I make it or whatever. Or you could have, if you had thought ahead of time, you could have put the yolk, gone on and separated your egg and thrown your yolk in your dough when it was mixing. So I don't typically throw it away. Can always use it. Okay, so there's our sesame seeds.
I'm actually going to add a little bit of extra salt.
Okay. You
Just
want the
the
coarse?
outside.
You want the coarse?
Yeah.
That might be
give me
nice.
the coarse ground.
The
Yeah.
coarse ground on your outside of your bread just gives it a nice little taste when you're taste sensation when you're eating it.
There we go.
All right, and so we'll sit that in the proofer to rise. That was salt. This is our coarse salts that we sell in our grinder. Okay, so see, let's move this, and I'll slide this pressure cooker over. So our chicken is up to pressure. This is one of the safety features of the Fissler pressure cooker. You will never explode this pressure cooker. Well, I say never. I mean, you'd have to try really, really hard. You'd have to put a bomb in there. But there's so many safety features. Like, it's over pressure now. I don't know if you can see the little white rings on the pressure valve, but it's up to the second ring. That's the highest pressure. It's on high heat. You want to bring your pressure up to the second ring over high heat. But now what I need to do is I need to reduce my heat to low, to medium, wherever, just to maintain the pressure at the second ring. If I don't, the pressure cooker, this is a safety feature, it's letting steam out so that the pressure won't keep building and building and building, okay? So it will do that. If you hear your pressure cooker, that means it's over pressure and it's letting the steam out so it doesn't keep building. So I'm just gonna turn it down. And on the induction burners here, I found that 3 or 4 out of 9, 9 is the highest, works really well. What I find at home is the more stuff I have in there, like if I have the whole chicken and all the broth like we do now, we have a lot of broth in there, or Caleb's stock. Oh dear. Okay, that's still not even coming up. It'll take a while to come up. But what I find with, if I have a lot of liquid and a lot of vegetables and that kind of thing, that it may take a little higher heat to maintain that pressure. The less stuff I have in there, the lower my heat might need to be to maintain the pressure. Are you with me there? Okay. It doesn't matter like how much vegetables you have in there as to how long you cook it. Like a carrot is going to take 1 minute to cook, whether you have a whole pressure cooker full of carrots or a little bit of carrots. Meat, because here's the thing, what will change is how long it takes that pressure to come up. Like Caleb's back here is taking a long time because it was 6 quarts of cold water. Is it heating?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. It's about ready to come up. So that may be what you'll find, that the more stuff you have in the pot, it just may take longer to come up to pressure. Now your meat, your chicken and your beef and things like that, just like in the oven, it's going to be so many minutes per pound. So you will have to increase if you have a whole, 4 pounds of chicken or 10 pounds of chicken or whatever, you'll have to increase the cooking time a little bit there, but not so with your vegetables. So you can cook a whole pressure cooker full of ears of corn on the cob in the same amount of time you do 1 ear, you can do 10 ears or 15 ears. So that's one of the things about pressure cooking. Okay, so our corn pudding is cooking. This is our chicken. I'm going to go ahead and set my timer for, I'm going to just do 8 minutes since I've been talking for at least 2. So it's probably already cooked at least that many. Normally I would cook the breast about 10 minutes. A whole 3-pound chicken I would cook 15 to 20. A 7-pound roaster kind of chicken, one of those, I would have cooked more like 25 to 30 minutes, okay? Depending on if I want it just falling off the bone, don't care if it's just going to be soup, or if I want it to be whole and intact and lift it out and have a roasted chicken, then I might not go quite as long as with soup. But with soup, it really, you know, it doesn't matter. And then the same way with letting the pressure come down. Once it's finished cooking, the amount of time that I need it to cook, I can either quick release the pressure. If I want it to stop cooking, I can take it over to the sink, run some cold water over the edge of the pot here, and it'll bring the pressure right down. But with soup and stews and things like that, the easiest thing is just to turn it off and just let it naturally release. It really doesn't matter. You know that. You can't really overcook soup and stew. In fact, the longer you cook it, most of the time, the tastier it is. So we're going to just let our chicken finish cooking here, and it will turn itself off. And then I'm going to bring up my another burner to cook my broccoli cheddar soup.
Where's the timer? Where's the timer?
Remember on menu? Yeah, you do menu and see here. Yeah, see that?
Oh, that's right.
And that'll flash. That's your menu. And then hit it again, and that sets it. Okay? Okay. All right. Oh, yeah. You could absolutely, you can put a frozen chicken in there. You might have to increase the cooking time by about 5 minutes or something like that, but absolutely. Just make sure you get the insides out the bag or whatever that's up in there if it's a whole chicken. But absolutely you can put frozen chicken in there. Yep. Okay, let's get our, I'm going to do our 6-liter pressure cooker. And this is another considered stock pot because it's tall and more narrow. And we're going to do our broccoli cheddar soup. I did this recipe in the fall class, so those of you that were in the fall class, it's going to be a little bit of repeat. But I absolutely love the soup. It was not in the lineup, but I actually took out chili and put in this one because I came across the recipe. I'd kind of forgotten about it, and I was visiting my mom this week, and she's not doing real well and just kind of confined to home. So I went down to visit, and I was going to make them some chicken soup, but I thought, man, they've had chicken soup so much, and I had come across this recipe, and I thought, I'm going to make this broccoli cheddar soup. It is so delicious. Little different than what you maybe have seen in other places. And what I love is it incorporates white potatoes and sweet potatoes. And then we're going to puree it with a stick blender in the pot and make the creamy broth out of the soup part out of that. And the sweet potatoes actually give it the orange color that you think is really cheesy. We're still going to put some cheese in there, but the orange color of the sweet potatoes is going to really color the soup. So I thought, you know what? Yikes. I'm going to make this in the class. So there's my cheese. We're going to steam our broccoli. So we're going to, first thing we'll do is we will saute our onions and our celery. So there's our onions, and there's our celery. My parents loved this soup. It was so different from anything they had had recently that they could, you know, easily make themselves And this is a tool made by Fissler as well. Everything Fissler makes is very thoughtfully designed. And this is called a comfort turner. It fits in your hand very well, very comfortably, and the whole way it's shaped, it's very comfortable when you're using it. And even the design of the curve here, I don't know if you see this, but that's designed that way so that it will go into the edge of the pot there and get all around the bottom. So I love my comfort turner. I love my high heat spatulas, and I really, really enjoy using them. And in this soup, I probably would, my switchets, these are high heat. I love using those, but when I'm making, particularly browning meat, the comfort turner is really nice. Or like when I'm browning something down in a pot like this, it's nice to have a little bit sturdier spatula there to use. So we're going to add our chicken broth after this is sauteed, and my potatoes. I'm going to go ahead and, I did peel my potatoes in this soup, or my trusted assistant peeled them. My children, do your children always do that when I say, I peeled the potatoes, and they're like, who peeled the potatoes? So I'm always very careful to Sharon, my friend Sharon Fescannon, my helper and sidekick and partner in crime over there. She peeled the potatoes for me. I told her to leave one sweet potato not peeled because I wanted to show you how wonderful this swivel tooth edge peeler is. This is like the ultimate potato peeler. All of us have potato peelers, right? The kind we grew up with and our mother, but this one has, why I didn't think of this a long time ago, I don't know, has a serrated edge. And this will peel your skins off of your sweet potatoes or your regular potatoes, but it will, so it'll do these harder types of vegetables, but it's also delicate enough. It will do a tomato, it will do a kiwi, it will do a mango, it will do the more delicate things as well because of the sharpness of the serrated blades. So I wanted to show you, this is called the swivel tooth edged, it's called a piranha peeler is what they call it, but because I guess of how sharp those teeth are there. So there's my sweet potato. And I'm not a big fan of peeling potatoes. I typically don't peel them, but with this soup, we're going to puree it, and we want it really, really creamy. And I couldn't remember when I made this soup the first time if I peeled my potatoes or I didn't. So I thought, well, I better peel them because I just wasn't sure if the peeling there would blend totally in. Of course, you could always not peel it and then strain those skins off if you want the vitamins and the flavor of those peelings. They do lend some flavor there. So I don't think you could make a snack out of just the sweet potato skins. I just don't know. A lot of people kind of are shocked when I don't peel my sweet potatoes because they're like, whoa, that's different. So anyway, but I don't think they would be very tasty just by themselves. All right, let me chop up my sweet potato here that I left to show you how easy it was to peel. Hey, where's Caleb? I wonder if he even saves sweet potato. I think you could. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pour my broth in because I smell my onions down there and I don't want them to burn. So go ahead and add my broth here. Would you save sweet potatoes for your stock? Well, you're no fun. I would save sweet potatoes. I think they'd be good. Oh, no starch. I can see that. Yeah. Okay, so no starch, no acid. That's what he's saying. Okay, I got you there. So put that in whatever you're doing if you want to. Yeah. Okay. The nice thing about pressure cooking your potatoes and things like that when you're making mashed potatoes or soup like this that we're going to cream is you really don't have to worry about cutting those potatoes very small. They're going to get really done really fast in the pressure cooker. So I need my bay leaves. Did I not get, you want to pick me a couple of bay leaves from over there? And we'll do that. We'll put the cheese and the broccoli are going to go in later, so we'll do that in just a minute. The original conventional recipe actually had you putting the half and half in here with the broth, but I found with the pressure cooker it was better to not put the half and half in here. It kind of curdled. So I think the directions tell you that. I don't have you putting the, but I just wanted to tell you, if you do it conventionally, you could go ahead and put your half and half in, and that's why it's higher up in the ingredients list there. So now I need to add 4 cups of water, but I think I moved it in the instructions, but I left it up there in the ingredients list. I forgot to, I like to, when I'm writing a recipe, I like to put my ingredients in the order that I'm going to add them. So the 6 liter, this is just about maxed out as far as the limit here of the liquids that you can use. So now I'm going to do my salt. And I find that with potatoes, whenever I'm cooking potatoes, I like to salt them when I'm cooking them. I think it really gets that flavor in there. And if I forget to salt them when I'm cooking them, it just seems like I can't ever get them salty enough when I'm like mashing them or whatever. So I always like to salt my potatoes when I'm cooking it. So again, I'm going to match my circle on my lid to the red dot on the handle with my lever forward. I'm going to put this lid into place, shut it down, and lock it into place. Okay? Do you have any of the magnetic trivets over there, the red and black, like hot? You know what I'm talking about? Because I was going to sit this off. Oh, here's a small one. This is what I'm talking about if you see the larger one. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and sit my chicken off and just let it naturally release. And while my potato and broth are coming up, I'm going to go ahead and steam my broccoli. I saw it yesterday somewhere. And this is the Fissler cookware. As you can see, I really love Fissler products. Everything they make is just wonderfully designed. Okay, I'm going to put a little salt in my water here. Just a little bit. And then just go ahead and add my broccoli. And I bought the crowns of broccoli and then just cut it into little flowerets, kind of small because of going in the soup. You don't want a huge hunk of broccoli. You want to kind of get it, be able to eat a piece of broccoli with just about every bite of soup. I actually think we might add a little more broccoli there. All right. Now all we're going to do to steam this is just put the lid on and let it start boiling, and then once it boils, we'll just turn it off and then just let it sit there for 2 or 3 minutes, and that'll actually perfectly steam your broccoli. You really don't have to continue with when you're steaming broccoli to just have it sitting on the heat steaming and boiling and boiling. Really, once that water comes up to boil and starts, you know, releasing steam and evaporating, then you can just turn it off and let it sit there, and that will be just about perfect on the broccoli. And we're going to add it to our soup anyway. Okay, so Caleb's stock is up to pressure. So we're going to now time it for about 20 minutes. You already got the time on it, okay? So we're going to do that, and we're going to, we need to wait on our broccoli soup to come up. I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll go ahead and bring my pressure down on my chicken soup, and we'll finish it off over here. Normally I would just let this naturally release. But just remember, when you're pressure cooking, if you let something naturally release, if that pressure is up, it really is continuing to cook. It doesn't matter if I sit it off the burner, that pressure's staying up. It's continuing to cook because it's pressurized inside that pot, and the heat and everything is still there. So that's why delicate things like green beans that only take a couple of minutes to cook in a pressure cooker anyway, if I let them naturally release, it'd take 5 minutes or more for the pressure to come down. Well, those green beans are going to be really, really, really cooked. So delicate things like your vegetables and things like that, you want to quick release them. You want to bring them over to the sink, get that pressure down, open the lid so that cooking time stops. But things like soup and stews and pot roast, it just really doesn't matter that much. Meatloaf. How many of y'all were at the pressure cooking class? Okay, I took my 6-liter pressure cooker with 2 inserts, and I did meatloaf and mashed potatoes for my mom and dad in the pressure cooker in just 15 minutes. It was so delicious, so great. So yeah, I looked like the Galloping Gourmet in there one day. I had their whole kitchen. It didn't look that way in a long time. We made these wonderful garbanzo bean brownies and the meatloaf and mashed potatoes, and I made this little coffee pudding for my mom, and I don't remember what all else I made that day. I made the broccoli cheddar soup for lunch, so they were very, very appreciative. But it was so easy with the pressure cooker. You could do all that without it just being a hassle. And like I said, I don't leave home without my pressure cooker because that's how I know how to cook now. So I could still cook otherwise, but we do. We will give it to you. I should have done that for dessert today. I didn't make y'all a dessert. But it's wonderful. Compliments of Gina Salino. You will love these brownies, and you will never believe that there's no flour. It's just pureed garbanzo beans. A little bit of oatmeal, a cup of rolled oats, and then they're amazing. To me, they taste kind of like a cross between, okay, our water's boiling here on our broccoli, so I'm going to just turn it off and let it steam. Cross between a chocolate chip oatmeal cookie and a brownie. It's kind of got the cookie kind of flavor and the brownie kind of texture. Really, really delicious. Okay, so we're going to open our lid away from us. They'll have it out front. I better go warn them that they're going to want all right, let's see. I'm going to take this off. Okay, so our broccoli is steaming, and it's fine there. Get that trivet off of there. I love these magnetic trivets. They're wonderful when you're, having to shift a hot pot around, so you don't have to scoot the pot holder. But the only downside is you got to remember to take them off the bottom of your pot before you put them back on the burner. That's the only thing you need to remember. Okay, so we're going to take our chicken out here. Take our bay leaves out. I think I'm going to almost need a spoon here, maybe a wider tong, because my chicken is so done. So see, in just 10 minutes, my chicken is falling apart. I'm just going to lift my chicken out. And Sharon, one thing that we might want is a little cheese. So if you want to go just pick out a block of cheese, because I always serve this with a little cheese over it. just whatever turns you on out there. So our potatoes and carrots are definitely plenty done. Okay. How many do I have there?
5.
There's another one in there somewhere.
Well, 5.5. One of them's kind of falling apart. So.
No, I put 6 in, so. Hello.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then
Oh, 6.
5 to 6.
Yeah, who taught you math? Your mom did?
I was homeschooled.
I know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. Thank you. I only need about 3.
Only 3 of them back.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Dice them up.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I actually was going to use this little guy here to chop them.
What?
The chopper. I love it. This thing. If you want to bring it over, I'll do that. Okay, so let's just turn our soup back on here. And we're going to add our seasonings and our soups while our potatoes are coming up. Okay, is this in the, yep, okay. You want to bring it? Okay. Well, let's see. Let me just get a couple of them.
You want to take the other 2?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Actually, I'll just do that. Okay, there you go. Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of chop this up. It's not in a mirror? Okay. There we go. So all I have to do is say something. I love this tooth edge chopper. I use it. This is what I use. We eat pancakes with strawberries and whipped cream, and I'll slightly thaw my frozen strawberries and then just take this and it just mushes them right up. Potato salad, it's great. Take your whole potatoes and just kind of chop them up. You use leftover baked potatoes to make your potato salad. Lady that ran a restaurant told me that trick with this, and I'm like, oh wow. Never thought of that. This doesn't just mush it totally. I mean, the more you chop, the more it will cut it, but I'm just basically wanting to shred it and cut it just slightly. Okay. Come on. Okay, so we'll add our chicken back. I can tell our broccoli's about ready to come up. I hear it talking to me over here. I can see the steam coming out. All right, so we're just going to add our chicken back to the broth. Okay. Yeah, just a little hint on your pressure cookers. The little valve here, actually, you'll see some steam come out just right before it starts building pressure, and you'll actually hear a little click, and it's that valve locking down. It lets all the air, everything out, and then it locks down, and then it starts building up pressure. All right, that's my timer for my corn pudding, so let me check that real quick, and then we'll finish up our chicken stew. I'm going to let it go for just a couple of more minutes. It's not quite set. You want it to not, I'm sorry. I have a bad habit of talking while I'm back there. On your corn pudding, you want it to be set. You don't want it to be jiggly at all, and you want the top to be nice and browned. So just let it get set like that. So I'm going to let it go just a couple of minutes there. And I'm going to stir in my chicken. Such an easy soup to make. Got lots of cans of tomatoes. So I use the canned tomatoes. And it calls for cumin and paprika. I'm going to use my Old Faithful, my Jack and the Bean dip mix, because it has onions, jalapenos, tomatoes, garlic, cayenne, cumin, paprika, oregano, thyme, and pepper. No salt, no MSG, nothing else, just good old vegetables, dried herbs and spices. So I'm going to just got my cumin and my cayenne and my paprika already in there. So I'm going to just add about 2 tablespoons to this whole pot of soup. Then I'll add my garlic salt. Doesn't it call for about 1/2 teaspoon? Okay, there's that. And then I'm going to start opening my cans of vegetables. This is my safety lid lifter. This puzzles Sharon every time she goes to use it. All you're going to do now, yeah, she's got it now. You got your 2 little wheels here. You're going to lay it flat on the top of the can, and then all you do is start turning. And again, see how nice this handle is shaped? It perfectly fits your thumb and your finger, your other fingers, and so you just lay that right there. As soon as you start turning, it locks into place, and it starts cutting the can. And then you'll hear it click when it gets done, and all you do is just turn it back the other way. It releases the can opener. Okay, what did it do? It cut around the rim. So now you take your little bird beak there, and you got a little lever here, and you pinch the lid, and you just pull it up, and now you have no sharp edges or rims or anything, and that's why it's called a safety lid lifter. These are my Rotel tomatoes. Just going to dump them in. This is a particular brand, and you can get mild or hot or the original, whatever spice or heat strength you like. You can do that. Let's see, Caleb, will you bring me a wooden cutting board? I mean, a wooden cooling rack? And I'll go ahead and put the corn puddings out. I think they're ready. Okay, our broccoli and, our potatoes are, the pressure's up, so I'm going to just turn the heat down here to maintain that pressure, and I'm going to cook them for about 3 minutes. Okay, so while that's cooking, I'm going to get my corn pudding out. Oh yeah. Nice and golden, crispy around the edge. There's our corn pudding. You're going to love this. The main thing is you want to make sure that it's not too jiggly in the center. Caleb, is your bread ready to go in the oven, do you think? You want me to take? Okay. Well, I think so.
You think so?
Yeah, because see how it's risen apart there?
Is the oven preheated?
Yep,
Okay.
it's ready. Okay, here's our bread. It has risen. You want to open it for me? And we'll go ahead and stick it in the oven that's ready to go. Okay. How much? 30?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, it's not going.
20, go 25, and I'll
Okay.
check it because I don't want it to burn on the
Okay.
outside.
Okay. All righty. So there's our corn pudding. We're going to add the rest of our vegetables here. I'm sorry? Yes, ma'am. Do we sell the wood trivets? I might should bring Brad out here and answer that question. Absolutely not. Brad made those for me years ago, And we actually, he made some to sell, but they were so labor intensive that people just didn't want to pay the money that we had the time and energy in them. So no, we don't. But they're beautiful, aren't they?
Mom, our stock is finished over here. The timer's gone off.
Okay.
So we're going to just let this naturally come down in pressure.
Okay. I don't know if you can hear Caleb. The stock is done. The timer has gone off. The burner has turned off. So we're just going to let it naturally release over there. Just let the pressure come down on its own. If you're in a hurry and you needed to bring that pressure down, you certainly can, but we're not. We're just going to let it come down, and that, I think, just continues to just infuse those flavors. I think with meat and things like that, letting them naturally release gives that rest time to the meat. I think tenderizes your meat and things like that. So just let that pressure naturally release, and then we're going to be ready before you know it for his Italian meatball soup. You're going to love that. All right, that's my potatoes here. The timer just went off. The induction burner just turned itself off. So we're going to just let those things just sit there and come down. We're going to add our green chilies, not green chicken. I always get that back. I go, green chicken chili stew. No, it's green chili chicken stew. So we're going to add those. I think it's 2 cans. How many? 3? Okay. For some reason, I don't have my recipe here. Remember, recipes are suggestions. That's why when I decided to use the jack and the bean instead of the cumin and the paprika, it was certainly fine. You might want to save your bread as to go with your cheddar soup, so that we're putting it on your table, but that's what it's for. Let's give them plates. We need to pass them out plates. I think they need a plate, yeah, because they're going to get it and they need a plate. So if you would just go put plates on each table, just a stack for them, because, yeah, they're not knowing what to do with their bread. They're eating it. They're not waiting for the soup. You're throwing off our groove now. I'm sorry. I know you expected to eat when you first got here. When Caleb and I threw you a curveball. You're like, oh, the Beckers, they always have food when we first get there. Well, just go ahead and pass out the plates. No, you can't wait now. 3 tables have bread and the rest of them don't. You'll have mutiny on your hands if you try to wait now. They are. They're like, it's lunchtime. And like I said, they probably came thinking I was going to serve breakfast. I'm sorry. And see, I actually think this chili soup's going to be ready before the broccoli soup. So, oh, there's my 3rd can. All right. So I've added my seasoning, my chilies, my tomatoes, and I need a 1/2 cup of milk. I don't. But, you know, there's so many great soup recipes. You know, go online, use the internet, and just, this is the basics of how you do it. You can take any recipe you find online and just do it in the pressure cooker. If it says cook it for an hour, you probably only need to cook it for about 10 minutes, depending on what it is. So here's our green chili, I said it right, green chili chicken soup. Yeah. Yep, I just used the jack and the bean to replace the cumin and the paprika. Yes, you know, I kind of told you I was kind of 1 1/2 in it. So it should have been, so there's 2 cans, so it should have been 3 cans. So that's why I used 1 large can of the Rotel and 1 of the diced tomatoes, okay? But normally I would just use a regular can of Rotel and a regular can of tomatoes, but because I'm kind of 1 1/2 in it. I didn't think 1 recipe was going to be quite enough for y'all to have a nice serving of the soup. You can see this is an 8-liter pressure cooker. The pot is full, so 1 1/2 makes a lot for a crowd. 2, I would have been swimming in the soup if I had totally doubled it. And again, with a recipe like this, you know, if you want more tomato in there, put more tomato in there. It's not so specific and exact that you couldn't do what you wanted to do with it, all right? But that's kind of what I did. I was kind of a little more than a single recipe, but not quite the double. Uh-huh. Yeah, her question is if I wanted to can this soup, I would probably get out my canner directions and see what I should do there. You might not want to cook your vegetables. I don't even know if you want to cook your chicken. I think you put it all in there raw, and it when you can it, I believe it cooks it and everything. I'd have to get out. I've not done a lot of canning of soup and things. When I do soup, if I do extra, I'll typically freeze it because it freezes so well and so nicely. A soup like this will freeze really, really well. So now I'm going to add our cilantro. And it called for 2 teaspoons. I don't know if you ever measure cilantro. And if you don't like cilantro, don't put it in there. I love cilantro. I don't think you can get enough cilantro, but some people just really don't like cilantro. They think it tastes like soap. And I'm like, okay, whatever. But I eat it raw. I mean, I eat it. When it's as a garnish on the side of the plate, I'll eat it. So, all right. Oh, man, it smells delicious. All right, and so now to serve this, I would either put it in a bread bowl, which makes it really, really nice. The bread bowl is very nice because the soup will kind of soak into the bread, and so then when you're eating it, it's kind of got the soft bread thing going on. But I think you're going to love it with the corn pudding as well. Now, we're not going to put it over the corn pudding. We'll just serve the corn pudding on the side. Okay? So we're going to let that just simmer another minute or 2 just to let those flavors meld, and then we'll finish up the broccoli. No, that's all right. I wasn't paying attention either. Go ahead.
On the recipes, the green chili chicken stew.
Uh-huh.
I see 1, and I think you already said, I'm sorry, I was paying attention. 1 14-ounce can of diced tomatoes, and then 1 10-ounce can of diced tomatoes.
Of the road. Okay, that's a 10. It's a.
It might just be the way it was typed out, or it was
Well, it's your Rotel tomatoes. I'm trying to see. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't have a small can of the Rotel tomatoes. The Rotel tomatoes, it's a particular brand, and it comes with diced green chilies, and it's got some seasoning in there already. And they usually only come in a 10-ounce can, whereas most of your other diced tomatoes come in a 14-ounce can. So that was the way the recipe was when I found it, and I worked it a little bit, in fact, it might have called for 2 cans of regular diced tomatoes, and I like the Rotels, so I put the Rotels in there. Okay?
Thank you. On the handout, a couple of things are in the left column that should go on the right, so it is just a little confusing. Chilies and with green.
I don't see that. Oh, you know what? You have a different handout than I did. It might have shifted something. Let me see yours. Okay, yeah. And I didn't proof your. When Jim formats it. Okay, I see what happened. Okay. Okay, what happened is the 10-ounce can of diced tomatoes with green chilies such as Rotel. Okay, the green shifted over here, so something shifted on the recipe there. That's, you aren't messed up. Our format, and yes, and the same there. Can of chopped green chilies. It rolled it. And see, my recipe's not that way, so I'm like, I don't know what happened. But when Jim formats it to put the header and the footer and everything there, it must have shifted, and I didn't proof it. I had already proofed this. I didn't know it would shift things like that. Sorry about that. So there you go. Just now you're confused. No wonder you wanted the bread. You're like, okay, maybe I need something to eat because things are looking a little weird here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and bring this pressure down so that we can go ahead and puree. If you want to be getting the stick blender. And what we'll do with the green chili chicken soup, when you dish it up into the bowls, we'll sprinkle just a little cheese and maybe cilantro on top. And then we'll serve the corn pudding. Well, now that they have their plates, I guess we... Well, you're going to put the corn pudding in that? Okay.
How long do you know to do that?
Until the pressure drops. I'm going to run the cold water over the edge of the pressure cooker until the pressure valve drops. You'll hear it. It'll click. You won't see the the white rings. Red, white, and blue. I hit it all. Very patriotic today. So you just run it. Now you don't want to get so far up there that it goes in the valves here. You just want to run it along the edge. Caleb is a master soup maker. The hard part about Caleb is getting him to do a recipe. He can't do that way. So he would probably totally take this soup if we were home, and he would add all kinds of stuff to it. So.
Well, I think the best thing about a soup sometimes is you can open your cabinets, open your refrigerator, and you've got this and that and some of this and a little of that,
Yeah.
and it can
And you
all go
taste
in the
it.
pot and
Taste
season
it,
it up
go.
good, and it tastes good.
Yeah.
And you can make a whole big pot of it.
The only downside is if you put something in there and you're like, that did not blend with what I was just doing. So maybe try it in a little small bowl on the side and see if that's what you want. It was so funny, the chili that we made yesterday that I was going to do in the class, and I have never made a Cincinnati chili. Have any of y'all ever heard of Cincinnati chili? Cincinnati is evidently the hub of chili outside of Texas. There's Texas chili, and then there's Cincinnati. And it is totally different than Texas chili. It typically only has meat in it, and then you top it with onions and beans if you want it. But the thing about Cincinnati chili is it has cocoa powder in it, and it has allspice, cinnamon, cloves, has all these kind of Mediterranean, Moroccan, whatever. In fact, it was in Cincinnati, it was two Greek brothers opened a chili house, and that's how they made chili. And I'm going to tell you, we made it yesterday, and Caleb and I both were like, no, this is not doing it for me. But I made it here to taste it, and then that was going to be our dinner at home. So I was like, oh, well, too bad. We're having this for dinner. So I went home and made the corn pudding. But then I thought, well, I better make a pot of regular chili too. So I had to go home and cook after I had this great plan of cooking here while I was sampling in the kitchen. But it's funny because Caleb goes, you're having what for dinner? And I said, corn pudding chili. He goes, okay, I'm coming over. So he came over, and I said, and so while the regular chili was cooking, I opened the Cincinnati chili, and I thought, okay, I'm going to taste it again and just see. Oh my goodness, in the 2 hours after we made it and the flavors melded, he and I both ended up eating that chili for dinner. So I might still have to give you the Cincinnati chili recipe sometime. I think I took it out of your handout. But, and I kind of liked it better than the other.
I did too.
It was definitely different and interesting. But it has its own little following, this Cincinnati chili. I was going to show you what I baked the bread in that you're supposed to be eating with your broccoli cheddar soup here. One basic recipe, I divided into these 8 little mini loaves. It was actually about 5.3 ounces of dough, and it fit perfectly into the little pans. Did you like that? I just loved the way it looked, and I think that'd be really pretty presentation of sitting that on the table, you know, around, even between a couple of people, and letting them have it. But that was what we did. So the basic recipe, the pumpernickel variation, is on the very first page of your handout, what we did there. And Caleb came up with that variation as well. All right. It cooked about 20 minutes in the small pan. Yep. Okay.
Dig these bay leaves out.
Oh, yep,
here.
sorry.
I got 'em.
Take your bay leaves out. This lovely friend and gentleman right here, they came bringing me.
It's right there against the side. There you go.
I'll share a few if y'all want, because he actually brought me a whole basket already plucked off, and then went, oh, well, heck, we'll bring her a whole limb, because they were pruning it. So, all right. So this is our stick blender. It does a nice job of pureeing your soup. Uh-oh. Hang on just a minute. Okay, he's pureeing the soup just right here in the pot. The stick blenders do a really nice job of this. It's nice to not have to transfer it. You can just do it right here in the pot. But at home, I don't have an outlet next to my stove, so I just transfer it to a blender. Of course, you can move the pot, but I transfer it to my big blender that I pureed the corn pudding in. So you can do it either way. You just want to be careful if you're going to blend it in a blender to let it vent. So don't have the little top piece in.
And then I would put a towel over your
a
hole
little
that
paper
you're using
towel
as
or
your
something,
vent.
because you don't want the heat to cause it to blow the lid off there. But this just does a really nice job.
Question?
Well, what I do is I take like a ladle and kind of ladle my potatoes out, or kind of strain them, and then just a little bit of the liquid, just enough to puree it. But no, it typically doesn't, and that's why I'm saying, though, take the, the little knob that's on your blender lid, or mine has a little thick piece that fits down in that spout if you do it in a food processor. Take that off, and that's what Caleb was saying. Put a paper towel or something over it so it doesn't spew out of there. But you don't want to lock your lid totally down, or the heat will kind of go. But no, I do it in my blender a lot. So, but look how smooth and creamy.
I'm not quite done yet.
Okay.
Just give me a couple more minutes.
He's multitasking here.
I still got to make meatballs.
Okay, that's okay. We're going to do it. We're fine.
Right.
What time's the class supposed to be over? 1, 2,
Oh,
right?
okay. I've got plenty of time.
Okay. All right. See how nice and creamy the soup is, how pretty it is. And now we're going to add our half and half. We're going to stir it in. And like I said, the original recipe, it said to put the half and half in there when you cook the potatoes. But I found in the pressure cooker, I guess being under pressure and cooking it at a little higher temperature, it caused it to curdle. The light cream doesn't, but half and half does. So I'm just going to add my half and half, and I'm going to go ahead and turn this on just a kind of a medium heat so that it'll get hot here. Just heat through. Remember, when you cook in a pressure cooker, Why it cooks faster is every pound of pressure you put in the pot, it increases the boiling point of water. So you're cooking hotter. So everything is really, really hot when it comes out of the pressure cooker. It's much more than 212. I think it's like 240, something like that. So I'm going to just add my cream there, my half and half. I'm going to add my cheese. And I'm using the garden vegetable yogurt cheese here. I love the smoked cheddar, but we're out of the smoked cheddar. And all you really have to do is just let this melt. And this one recipe, you can see it makes a big pot of soup. In fact, I'm wondering if we're going to really get the broccoli in here. Okay. I'm going to taste for, always taste your soup. See if it needs salt or any other seasoning. I think it can use just a tiny bit of salt and pepper, not a lot, just a little bit. That might have looked like a lot to you, but with a big pot of soup, it's not really that much. I'm going to go ahead and put my pepper in. Oh, wow, that is so good. A little more cheese here. Stir that in. It's melting, it's nice and creamy. When I made this the first time, my son was over, and he does not like sweet potatoes. And he said, wow, that was the best sweet potatoes I've ever had. I would have never known they were in there. Okay, let's look at our broccoli. It's perfect, see? Whereas if you had sat there and boiled it and boiled it and boiled it, you take the chance of getting it too done. But just bring your water to a boil and then just set it off and just let it sit there. And usually in about 5 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes, it's ready. So I can drain my water off. I think I'm going to have to remove a little bit of that broth over there to, hold on just a minute. I'm going to have to take some of this soup out to get the broccoli in, so I'm going to just transfer a little bit of it here to another pot. This might be my dinner. I'm just doing this, just in case you're checking out for a minute. I'm just doing this to make room in this pressure cooker for the broccoli. That's all I'm doing. It's kind of like the story about the lady that cut the pot roast in half. Do y'all remember that? Do you ever heard that story? She cut the pot roast in half, and her husband said, why do you do that? And she said, well, because my mother did. And he goes, well, why did she do it? And she goes, well, I really don't know. So they called her mom, and she said, well, because my mother did. And he said, well, why did she do it? Well, I don't know. Let's call her. So they called Grandma, and Grandma said, because I didn't have a pot big enough to put the roast in. So in case you think that that was something that you had to do, it wasn't. It was just because the pot's not holding the... So what a nice change of pace from your normal chicken soup or chili or whatever, the broccoli cheddar. All right, and I thought the molasses pumpernickel bread would be great with this soup. But seeing how I starved y'all, so now you had to go ahead and eat. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, I should have saved a little bit of that broccoli for, oh well, we'll add that back once we dip down. Okay, so there's our broccoli cheddar. Y'all can have this. Do you want to serve this and then the chicken chili? Okay. Do you want to do this now that it's ready?
Sure.
All right, and then the chicken chili is ready. What's in the butter? Sharon, what's in the butter? Probably a little salt, a little Italian seasoning, and a little thyme. Is it like we did it the last time? 2 sticks of butter, teaspoon of Italian seasoning, a teaspoon of thyme, and about a half a teaspoon of salt, depending on if you use salted or unsalted butter. Okay, so if you use salted, you might not need the extra salt. If you use unsalted, then you might need a little more. Okay. All right, I'm gonna. All righty, you want a board to sit it on?
Sure.
Does it look done?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think so.
Here's our Italian bread is coming out. I'm going to taste our chicken soup here. See if it needs any salt or anything. Oh, wow. Oh, look how pretty. All right. Just a little, no, I think that's good. I don't think it needs salt. I think we're good there with the green chili. And then where's the corn pudding? You already got it over there?
I put it back in the oven where I was proofing just to keep it warm.
Just to keep it warm?
Yeah.
All right, you want to just leave it there?
Yeah.
All right. Then we can put a lid on this and whisk it aside so we can start doing the meatballs, or you're good and I can go over there and help Sharon. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Sure.
I'm leaving. Bye. He's like, go away, would you?
No.
No, you wouldn't say that to me.
I would
now,
never
would
do
you?
that.
All right. I'll just take this.
You take that with you?
Yep.
Right.
I'll take it because it'll stay plenty hot. Remember, stays hot. Okay. Here's this one.
All right.
Okay. You need the
small one
skillet
for the meatballs.
first.
You can leave that on there because I'm going to
Okay.
saute my vegetables for the soup. That'll work.
Let's get the one that has the waffle bottom.
Okay.
Nope, that's the little one. Forget it. Okay. All right. Now on your directions, Kayla's fixing to show you how to do the meatballs. Meatballs in the pressure cooker. Oh my goodness, fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. Because his original recipe, he didn't know about doing it in the pressure cooker, and he had them baking for 20, 25 minutes. You can do that. In the pressure cooker, it's 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes.
5 minutes,
5
yeah.
minutes is all you have to pressure them.
And they probably didn't even need to go that long, as
Right.
small as they were.
Right. So he's going to take over doing the Italian wedding soup, and I'm going to help Sharon with the broccoli cheddar.
Actually, why don't you stay up here with me
Okay.
and you want to make some meatballs while I start
Okay.
the rest of the soup?
Yes, sir, I can do that.
Okay. So for our meatballs, we're going to start out. It's a pound of ground turkey, and you can use ground beef. You can use ground beef and ground turkey, or there's another meat that I used to use
Oh,
that I don't use anymore.
okay. We're working on it. There we go. All right.
All right, so
There we go.
so start out with a pound of ground turkey, about a half a cup of breadcrumbs, and you just use whatever kind of leftover bread you have laying around. It's kind of crusty and old and dry, and I ran it through the box grater. 3 tablespoons of Italian seasoning, a teaspoon of salt, 1/3 of a cup of Parmesan cheese, about 4 or 5 cloves of garlic, and one small little onion or shallot. I think I used a shallot here. And 1 egg to kind of help hold them together. And you don't want to over mix these. You know, you just want to kind of lightly mix it all together. They'll stay a little fluffier and nicer texture if you just kind of lightly mix them together.
Okay, can I ask?
I'm sorry? You can either mince them, crush them. These I ran through the garlic press, but either way you want to do it.
Really?
What? I learned that from you.
Really? Look how much breadcrumbs he decided not to use.
It was just enough.
Do y'all notice? Do y'all do the same thing? You would put it in there, yeah. I had to pick on him a little bit because I find I do the same thing. Y'all have seen me do it, right? I leave like 4 potatoes, and I'm like, really? I'm going to leave 4 potatoes out of this pot of soup? What's 4 potatoes?
Go ahead and bring that tray back up.
Okay.
Here, now I'm going to... Actually, that was I tested my Italian bread here yesterday. We took some home to eat with dinner last night. I cut off the end and I left it sitting over there on the chopping block.
Just leave it sitting out in the air to dry.
Mm-hmm.
You can dehydrate it. If you have a dehydrator, you can throw it in a dehydrator.
I don't like dehydrated breadcrumbs. It gets too much of the moisture out, I think, and it's almost like sand, and it can be real gritty. I like either toasting in the oven or toasting them in a pan. You can grate your breadcrumbs and then just toss them around, toast them in here, or just leave it sitting out.
Yeah, just leave it sitting out.
That's the easiest thing.
And you can use the box grater to just grate the hard bread, or I love a blender. My little Tri-Best personal blender. I'll break up the pieces and put it in there. If it's nice and dry, well, even if it's not, even soft breadcrumbs, I just stand there and shake it. And if it's small enough, you know, where not like I have to do it tiny, but anyway, it's just not that big a deal. So, do you want to use the cookie scoop?
We can. I'm just going to go ahead and do it like this because I did the other ones like this.
Okay.
You can use a cookie scoop. You could use a spoon, just a teaspoon. They don't have to be perfect, but you know, try to make them all roughly about 1 inch in diameter.
Oh, okay. I love these.
Would you do the same if you were making, say, a meatball sub?
Sure.
Is that too big?
Sure.
A little bit?
Yeah, it's a little too big.
Oop, sorry.
So it just kind of fits in the ball of your hand?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yep. Kind of form them in the palm of your hand. All right, Mom.
What? You want me to take over?
You want to keep doing this
Yes,
while I
sure.
start the soup over here?
Mm-hmm. How was the broccoli cheddar soup? Isn't that, so warming. Very, very warming. And I'll tell you, that Cincinnati chili that I was talking about, it was very warming. I know chili's warming anyway, but the Cincinnati one with the cinnamon, the allspice, the cloves, very, very warming.
All right, we've got our stock over here that's almost come down from pressure. So while we're waiting on it to finish off and waiting on the meatballs over here, we're going to start the base to our Italian wedding soup.
Unlock it. There you go. I'm still trying to get Caleb used to the pressure cookers. And
Yeah.
he was like, I said, oh, Caleb, stock in a pressure cooker. You got to do it. And so he tried it last week, and he was like, okay, that was like really, really, really
I'm
good.
used to in the restaurants, you know, we do the same kind of thing. We save all our leftover vegetables and chicken and stuff like that and put them in 5-gallon buckets or whatever in the freezers. And then we have these either giant, you know, electric skillets or giant stock pots, and we'll pick one day of the week where we'll have a whole pot of stock cooking all day long. But 30 minutes was a lot a lot faster than all day. So.
Well, and the flavor.
And the
And he
flavor,
talked
sure.
about how intense the flavor was, not having to use, a lot of salt or a lot of, you don't have to use the bouillon or the store-bought stuff at all.
And you're using it from your leftover stuff that you would either be feeding to your chickens or to your garbage or compost.
Or most of us throwing it away. In fact, he fusses at me. I'll throw the onion skins away. He's like, Mom, save those. So I remembered last night. I started my own little bag last night.
All right, I'm going to start out just a little olive oil. Let that warm up a little bit. I'm going to add about one onion. This was one large onion, diced up. A couple carrots, put into slices. About 4 or 5 ribs of celery here. What's that? The celery?
Just a knife.
No, just a kitchen knife. I use ceramic knives.
Which that's the other thing.
I split the ribs in half lengthwise, and then just chopped them up there.
He's learning to love my ceramic knives.
I do. Actually, I'm starting to really like them. It took me a little while because I'm used to the weight of a heavy steel knife, and I used that weight to chop and cut. But I'm really starting to like the ceramic knives.
When the knife is so sharp, you don't need the weight, and also the lightness of the knife. It's very comfortable. It's not tiring to your hand, even when you're chopping a lot of stuff. Sometimes with those heavier knives, you're holding. You don't realize how much you're gripping just to grip the knife. So,
you do, but it takes a long time for them to go dull. We have a diamond. It's really a electric polishing wheel. So usually after every class, I'll run them through there a few times just to put the polish edge back on them.
Used to, though, you'd have to send them in to be sharpened, but I had mine for 3 years before I sent it in. Now, if you came over, you wouldn't go, oh my goodness, like you do when it's fresh out of the box. But if I gave you any one of my sharpened steel knives, you would go back to the ceramic knife. It's sharper than any knife you'll have in your kitchen ever, even 3 years old without sharpening it, even with lots of use. They're pretty amazing. But now that they did, Kyocera came out with the sharpener, that's pretty nice to be able to have that, and like Caleb said, run it back through. It won't bring it right back up to a factory edge, but it kind of re-smooths it, and it's just wonderful.
If you'll keep that up every once in a while to maintain that polish on it, it really stays very, very sharp.
And now that they've come down in the price, they used to be like $100 for a knife, and now they're, is it like $49, $59?
Yeah, some of them are very inexpensive.
I've not met a lady yet that did not absolutely love a ceramic knife, because like I said, they're so lightweight and they're so sharp. And you may be going, ooh, a sharp knife. A dull knife is more dangerous than a sharp knife, just so you know. Don't be dumb like I was and went, glass, is this really sharp? Yeah, that was dumb. You're looking at the total skeptic of all skeptics. I'm like, really? I got to figure this out. Is this really that way? Yeah, that was dumb. Never did that again.
All right, so my vegetables here, I'm going to add some Italian seasoning.
And if y'all have not tried our herbs and spices that we now carry, you really should. They are so much fresher than what you get in the store. I mean, you can smell the difference. The Italian seasoning is really, really nice. Well, all of them are. The thyme, the basil, that was what was in the butter, Italian seasoning. I'm convinced some of it is how fresh the herbs and spices are. The meatballs make about 50. I was counting there for a while. Not quite 50, somewhere between 40 and 50, depending on how big you make them.
And here I've got some sweet brown rice that I'm just gonna go ahead and add to this. Kind of toast it up with the oil a little bit.
Toasting your rice kind of coats it with oil and helps kind of bring out, convert those starches to make it just a little bit sweeter. Did you just see what I just did? That's one of those things when I used to cook in the winter with long sleeves on and I'd have my hands all messy. And my kid, I would do it without thinking, you know, do the old trying to get this, because you got yuck all over your hands, so you don't want to use your hands. So I would do this, and my kids were like, there you go. So yeah, they'd have to do that too. I'd go, hey, come here, somebody come do this.
All right, you done with the meatballs over here?
I am. I'm
All
on
right.
it.
So I've got a little bit of olive oil heating in here.
We're just gonna
Just
drop
start
them
dropping
in.
them in.
Drop them in. He was a skeptic, just like his mom. So I said, you got to do meatballs. There's even a recipe in one of the pressure cooker books for porcupine meatballs. You put your rice in the mixture and you pressure it for like 5 minutes. The rice and everything is done all at the same time. And it's those little, they're fabulous. Then you just pour your little sauce over here and you got spaghetti and meatballs and nothing flat, or whatever you're using your meatballs for. You'll love these meatballs.
Are you talking brown rice?
Well, the recipe is actually for white rice, so brown you would have to cook longer than the 5 minutes, but it was so cool. I'm sorry, what? No, I've got it just on low for right now while I'm dropping them in. Did this hold all these yesterday?
Yeah.
You might want to drop them in kind of close together because they're not wanting to move now that they're... Okay.
They'll move.
Got to take charge. I'm taking it. Be in command. I like that. That's kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
But now are they going to all kind of cook together now that...
No.
All right.
No, there's enough oil and stuff in there, and
Okay.
just drop them on top of it.
And remember, pressure cooker, to build pressure, you must have liquid. It's got to have some liquid in there. So what we're going to do, you could use water, but we thought instead of using water, we'll just use just a small amount of chicken broth. So just going to pour just a little broth here. Going to turn our temperature up to high. Just enough to cover the bottom of the pan. Can you see how much is in there? Just about that much, covering the bottom of the pan. Don't want to leave it without the lid too long there so that that evaporates out. So lock your lid into place and then let this pressure come up.
All right. The vegetables are starting to soften up over here. Got a good coating on the rice of oil. So I'm going to add my wine. And really, when you're cooking with white wine, just anything cheap, inexpensive, will do the trick. So I think it was about a half a cup, maybe a little bit more.
Oh.
Sure, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
If her question was, could you use chicken stock
No, he was just
instead
doing
of your wine?
yeah.
And absolutely. The wine just really kind of helps, bring out some of the flavors. It adds a little bit of sugar to the vegetables, helps them cook a little better. So we'll just let some of the alcohol cook out of that. For a minute, I'm going to add a few tablespoons of balsamic vinegar.
Yeah, we will.
Now this is when I'm going to go ahead and add my garlic. I don't like adding garlic too early when I'm sautéing vegetables. It can tend to make it a little bitter if you overcook the garlic. let's set a timer on our meatballs here for 5 minutes, and they will be ready. Our stock has come down from pressure, so we're going to go ahead and open this up. No, I was trying to speed it along a little bit. You wouldn't have to, and it mostly came down naturally by itself. It just had a little, pressure in there still, and I wanted to start working with it, so I hurried it along a little bit. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn my temperature down over here on these just a little bit. I'm going to put this strainer right over top of my pot. Yes, it's a silicone high heat. Trivet here. Show you guys a little picture of our nice, beautiful chicken broth that we've made now.
Is that the one with the bones in it?
This is the one with the bones and all your scraps and all your leftovers. And like I said, that those red onion skins will give it this nice, rich color. Now we're just going to dump this right through the strainer. You have a mixing bowl over there, Mom? One of the bigger ones?
Oh, they're over on the table.
Oh, okay. I think I got it. I need a bigger bowl. This isn't. Now to get the last little bit of liquid out of here, I'll pour all of these leftover scraps into the strainer. No. Carrots, onions, celery is really all I save. And stems from my thyme or basil or oregano, any of your herbs like that. Shallots, green onions, you could save any of those. Now I'm just using this ladle here, using the back side of it to press all your vegetables here to get out any last little bits of liquid so that you get all that flavor out of there. And now, finally, you can throw it into the trash. I have not, just because I feel like I've gotten a little, extra use out of them already. I'm sure there's still some more flavor in there. I just haven't done it. All right, our meatballs are done. It was a 2-pound. It did. It was the basic dough recipe, yes, sir. Sure did. Yes. All right, now while I'm waiting on the pressure to come down from my meatballs, I've got some eggs, Parmesan cheese, and garlic that I'm going to whip up because we're going to drizzle it into our soup, almost like an egg drop soup. I'm using 3 eggs. I think it's plenty for the amount of soup that we have here. 2 or 3 cloves of garlic, and just maybe a few tablespoons of grated Parmesan cheese. And you want to bring your soup up to a boil, or your broth here, so that when you drizzle the eggs in, they're going to cook right away. Just going to give this garlic a nice rough chop and a smash here. With the fresh Parmesan, it's so hard that I like to use just a zester to grate that in there. Like I said, just a few tablespoons ought to do it. We almost got a little roll and boil over here on our broth. Mom, where's the spinach?
Oh, I know.
Is it in the back refrigerator? Okay. Got some baby spinach that I'm just going to wilt into this broth. Add a little bit of salt. Thank you. One's probably going to be enough. I might need a little extra.
Do you need the stems or you take them off?
No, I'll leave the stems on it.
Is there a difference between nutrients and flavor in the baby spinach, or is it basically smaller?
It's smaller. I think the baby spinach has a little bit more flavor to it.
Do you need to put all that in the big pot or you okay?
I think we're doing all right.
Okay.
What do you think?
Yeah. You just got to do the, oh, you still got to add the meat.
Yeah, yeah,
We should be all right.
I think so. Just gonna stir this in, and it won't take but a few minutes to wilt that. Now when drizzling in your eggs, what you'll do is just kind of get it stirring here.
Do you need somebody to stir at the same time or no?
Yeah, if you want to.
Yep. So this is where you have to cook with somebody. Yep. Are we bonded?
We're bonded, Mom.
This is fun.
Isn't this fun?
Egg drop soup.
There we are.
Whoop, I threw off the groove. Is that good?
Mm-hmm.
So cool.
All right.
Your canning broth you use later to make some stuff, maybe a quart, you think?
I put them into pint jars. You could use a quart for sure. I freeze them. And you want to leave enough room when you're freezing them for expansion, or you'll blow up your jars. And then just rotate them out of your refrigerator. You know, a few days before you're ready to use it, you want to take it out of your freezer, put another one in. Just keep rotating it, give it time to thaw.
So you put a glass jar with a lid?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You can
Yeah,
put
just a
you
mason
can
jar
put the ball canning jars or they can freeze or can. And but like you're saying, you have to leave about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch headspace, and that will allow it to expand this way. If you don't, it'll expand this way and it'll crack the jar. So, okay.
Wondering if I should have put this into the big one.
I
Because
think
it needs to pressure for a couple more minutes to cook the rice the rest of the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to? You want to
What?
dump it into the 10 liter?
Yeah, I think I'm going to.
Okay.
I'm actually going to take this to the kitchen real quick and do it. How about that?
Okay. Or do you want to do it right there?
I can. Yeah,
All right.
so I wanted a little lower surface.
Yeah. We're running out of room in the 8-liter pot, so we need the 10-liter pot. So he's just going to transfer it to there. And he just wanted it to be lower down so he could pour it in. that's all. It needs to pressure just a little bit, actually, because the rice, he didn't cook the rice, so.
That's not in the directions. Should you pressure it before you add the eggs?
No, you don't have to. There you go.
Probably could have pressured it.
When I originally converted this recipe from mine and 2 or 3 others, I used pasta. That's why I didn't account for that. But for you guys to hold up to the amount that I was making and the time that it was going to take, I changed it to rice. So that's
Yeah,
why
I probably would have
step.
pressured it before putting the eggs and the spinach in. And we could still serve it. Just, the rice is all settled to the bottom, so
Yeah.
we could serve it without. Yes,
Sure.
you certainly
Sure.
could have. But that's what I'm saying. I think when he put the stock, we probably could have locked it on and pressured it then. But I think I would have maybe added the rice already cooked.
Would barley be a good alternative?
Absolutely. Barley would be great. Kamut would be great. Any of those. Wheat, I mean, any of it is fine. Okay.
All right.
All right. Any questions? Where are we? How'd y'all like the green chili chicken stew? How about the corn pudding? Oh my goodness, is that not delicious? That's my favorite. Any questions? Soups? Brown rice. Yes, any of your grains, it's basically the same, 2 parts water or liquid to 1 part grain. Rice, it doesn't matter if it's rice, wheat, barley, any of it. It's basically 2 parts to 1. And conventional cooking, it's going to take about an hour. Pressure cooking, it'll take about 18 to 20 minutes. And 18 to 20 minutes with the pressure cooker for your whole grains. And that's why I said, like, if I were cooking a whole chicken and I wanted chicken and rice soup, with brown rice, I would have just gone on and added my rice and cooked it with the chicken. The thing about rice, even brown rice, it will tend to kind of break down the longer you cook it. So like if you keep simmering the soup and every time you heat it, it'll break down. Not so with kamut and wheat and things like that. Kamut will stay sort of al dente. It almost feels like a kernel of corn in there, and it doesn't. You can cook it for days, and it's going to keep that little bit of chewy texture there. So for a lot of times for soup, I prefer to use kamut or wheat berries or even rye, something like that, that's going to keep a little more texture than your rice that will break down so easily. Anything else? Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Yes, you could totally, if you'll notice, her question is if you can only get 1 pressure cooker, would you get the 10 liter? Because you can cook tiny things even in a bigger pressure cooker, whereas you saw, some of the things you couldn't cook large volumes of. It would depend on the size of your family. A 5 or 6 liter pressure cooker is the #1 selling pressure cooker in the country. It's kind of like the standard. If you go to, a department store of any kind, you'll see 5 liter pressure cookers. That's kind of the standard, 5 or 6. So that's a nice size. That was the one I did the broccoli and cheddar soup in. I personally love the 8 or the 10 liter. I just love using something this size. I have the 8 liter. Obviously, if you want to do the stocks and things, I think you could cut back on the liquid and still do it in an 8 liter, 10 liter. Just a little bit more money and you could get the 10 liter. The 10 liter or the 8 liter or the fry pan that we used are all the same diameter. They use the same lid interchangeably. So that's a nice thing. So absolutely, we could have cooked the meatballs right in here and then just lifted them out and then finished our soup right in here. So yes, you can cook small amounts. You just have to be careful to not let it be too thin. You want about a ½ inch of liquid at least in the bottom. So that's why you can't say a cup of liquid, because in a bigger pressure cooker it's going to spread out, you know, to be less. So you've got to have a depth of about a ½ inch in your pressure cookers to build your steam. The smallest fry pan or the fry pan that we used? There's 2 fry pan options that we carry. There's one called the Nova Grill, and that's a waffle bottom fry pan that's that size. I couldn't find it in here. I don't know where it is. Hang on. This is Fissler's most popular set. This is a waffle bottom that allows you to braise your meat or your meatballs or whatever without oil of any kind. And it's sold as a set for $255. You get the steaming basket, you get a glass lid, and you get the pressure lid, and that's $255. And this is a 4.5 liter skillet. Then when we first started selling the Fissler pressure cookers, we ordered a bunch of just the skillets. They don't have the waffle bottom, but they're sold separately. They don't come with a lid. And we didn't realize that when we got them, and now we thought at first we had kind of made a mistake, but we do continue to carry just the skillet, because the lid for the 8 liter and the 10 liter fit the skillet. You know, it's the same lid. So you could, if you got an 8 or a 10 liter later down the road, if you wanted a skillet, you could add a skillet that lid would fit. Of course, you can also buy the lid separately if you needed at a later time. Go, okay, I'm wanting to use both of them at the same time, and you could use the lid there. And these are, I think, like $150. Don't quote me on that, but I don't have the pricing right in front of me. But all the pressure cookers are down this first aisle in the store, and they're all labeled. The pricing is all labeled. So this is what we used for the meatballs. The broccoli, I used a pot. I could have steamed it in this. Absolutely, I could have steamed it right here in this. That would have worked just fine. You can't use pressure cookers on a glass top? Absolutely. You can use, pressure cookers are just pots. They're not, you know, they're pots just like any other pot, except that it's the lid that closes down tightly so that then you can build pressure. And yes, but there's no issue with a glass top with a pressure cooker. And the nice thing about the Fissler pressure cookers is they're designed, any of Fissler's pots are designed with, being married to Brad all these years and in construction, he calls these expansion joints. This is so when the pot heats up, cools down, heats up, cools down, there's never any warping. It's a built-in design so that this pot will always be flat, always. It will never wobble and never, you know, get out of shape, especially going from hot to then cooling it down with the cold water. It's not going to warp this pot at all. So these are just great pots. Somebody had another question that I was fixing to answer, and Yes, I'm sorry. I've been out of town and didn't have a chance to answer my 4 favorite sizes of pressure cookers: an 8 liter. Or the 10, either one. But I use an 8 liter, a 6 liter, a skillet, this size skillet, the 4.5 size skillet, and a 4 liter, like I call it my saucepan, my side dish pot. You know, because if I'm cooking something over here, I'll always maybe steam my green beans in there or my brown rice or whatever side dish, I'll do that a lot in there. Depending on how many people are at home on any given night, I might do potato soup even in my little 4-liter if it's just the 3 of us or, you know, 2 or 3 of us at home. I have a waffle bottom, but the waffle bottom doesn't really matter to me because I don't mind using a little bit of oil. This design is for people that are really into the no fat of braising the meat without having to put oil down. That's the technology of the waffle bottom, but it really doesn't matter to me. But I do have the waffle bottom skillet. But either one. I do like having a skillet. There are just things that I like doing in a skillet, like the pasta Alfredo or the pasta, or like the braised potatoes or even chicken or the meatballs. I would rather have lifted the meatballs out of the skillet than down in there. It would have just been easier, but you certainly could do it and it wouldn't be that big a deal. And if I could only do one, I would certainly do the 8 or the 10 liter. That's what I would do. So I think those are, and you know, I cook just about everything in a pressure cooker. I like having several different sizes, and a lot of times a meal, of course now that I've learned to cook duplex and triplex all in one pressure cooker, like when I made the meatloaf and mashed potatoes for my mom, I did the meatloaf and mashed potatoes, stacked them in the same pot and just cooked it in that one pot. So learning that with the little inserts, the pan inserts that Fissler pressure cookers come with, that has helped tremendously to not use so many. But typically a meal, I will use 2, maybe 3 pressure cookers. And it will usually be an 8, a skillet, and a 4, or an 8, a 6, and a 4, or an 8, a 6, and a skillet, or something like that, just depending on what I'm cooking. I might have my meat in my skillet and my potatoes, but like I said, now I do a lot in one pressure cooker at a time. But I love my pressure cookers. I rarely go anywhere without them. Like I said, visiting my mom, I knew I was going to be cooking for them. I grabbed the pressure cooker because I knew it would be so easy to cook quickly, you know, and easily, and it's just so tasty. I mean, everything just tastes so much better because you're in an enclosed system. You're not losing nutrients or even flavor to the steam. It's all locked in, and you can't beat fast. I mean, I can't think of a meal that I cannot have on the table in an hour or less. I mean, there's a couple, like maybe a pot roast that maybe takes an hour. But most things, most things, 30 minutes or less from start to finish, prepping everything. And some things, it's 15 minutes. So it takes you longer to set the table and get everybody in there and sitting down than it does to fix the food. And just soap and water. They do say that they're dishwasher safe, but I usually have so many more dishes to go in the dishwasher that I wash my pots. Rarely do I put them. I don't. If you burn something, yeah, and you'll burn a few things. It'll take you a little while to get used to using a pressure cooker. I burned the chili yesterday, the one that I made, but I got it out of there really quickly. That's the only downside. If you burn something, you better if you smell burn, you better get it down and get it out of there because it infuses the flavor so much that's the only thing. And you'll do a couple of things, but you'll figure it out that, hey, that sauce, it was a new recipe, the chili, and it just wasn't quite as thick. I mean, it wasn't quite as thin as it needed to be. It needs to be pretty thin, a sauce, and then if you need to reduce it, then once it's pressured, then take the lid off and let it simmer open. Somebody had a, Francis? If you burn it, the best thing is to just soak it, and then lemon or orange peel will pretty much scrub that out. What you can't get out, if you kind of scrub it and then maybe put a little bit of the cleaner that they sell, the Swiss cleaner for the pressure cookers, just kind of scratch that in there, or wipe that in there and just leave it alone. Don't keep fooling with it. And tomorrow after it's totally dry, or maybe the next day, you'll think, because if you just keep messing with it, you'll go, I'm never going to get this clean. Then it almost like flakes up. But you'll be amazed that lemon and orange peel, the citrus, the acid, really, really can clean it up. And Caleb taught me a lot with using wine. Wine is great. While the pot is hot, if you burn something, if you'll take that wine and scrape, use, say, one of these, you can get a lot up with that if you'll do it while it's warm. You just let the wine cook right there. Right, Caleb? Am I telling them right?
Yeah.
Wine for cleaning the burned on is pretty amazing. But I think you could do the same with the citrus. It's something acidic, so we'll clean it right up. But like I said, I love my pressure cookers, and now they pretty much are my set of pots, because you can cook conventionally in a pressure cooker. Don't think, oh, I've got to have another set of pots too. There's only a few things that I don't cook in a pressure cooker: grits, oatmeal, spinach, broccoli. Broccoli I'll do in a pressure cooker, but you bring it up to pressure and you instantly bring it down. But you saw how easy it was to steam it, on the side. Most of the time I stir fry broccoli. But any other questions? Yes. Instead of sour cream, could you use the yogurt? I think you could. I think absolutely you could. I don't see any reason why you couldn't use the drained. I would drain it a little bit so it's a little thicker, but I think it'll give it a little more tartness because the yogurt's a little tartar than the sour cream, but I think you definitely could. Yep. Did y'all like the corn pudding? Yeah. So delicious. What was your favorite? How many oh, you haven't had the Italian wedding soup yet, so we can't vote yet. It'd be hard. They're both very different, the chicken soup and the broccoli cheddar. That broccoli cheddar, though, to me, is just so amazing. Somebody asked me how many is 2 pounds of potatoes. It's going to depend on the size of your potatoes, but let me see.
Rest of my meatballs. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Sharon, will you bring me that basket of potatoes? And again, remember, recipes are suggestions, so don't worry about it. But an average size potato it's going to take, that's almost 2.5. So somewhere between 6 and 7 potatoes. 6 and 7 potatoes is about 2 pounds. It really doesn't matter. It really doesn't. I mean, it's not life or death there. So, but somewhere around 6 or 7 average sized potatoes will make 2 pounds. And it was about 3 sweet potatoes. The nice sized sweet potatoes was about 2 pounds. But the only thing more potatoes would do for that soup, it would make it thicker. And so then if you just wanted to thin it, then just add a little more chicken broth or a little more half and half. I'd add a little more chicken broth, I think, okay, to thin it back down if you thought it was too creamy or too thick. Yes? How did I get started doing this? Oh, wow. Let's see. How long do you have? Actually, I learned about milling my own wheat and making my own bread through some journals. It was a medical health journal entitled How to Greatly Reduce the Risk of Common Diseases. And it was a journal that I subscribed to. The journal came to my home. It was on the history of white flour and how it came to be. And then there was a short discussion on the common diseases that plague this nation and how directly related they were to our consumption of white flour and processed foods, particularly flour, particularly what happened to our bread. I'm a food science major. I had studied food processing. I also had a background in physiology and biochemistry. I loved that. I loved the study of the body. I had continued to study on my own, even after graduating from college. So when I read that, I had never put those puzzle pieces together. I knew I bought whole wheat flour from the store, so I knew it was healthier, but didn't really make the whole connection. Also, the whole wheat flour in the store was gross. It wouldn't make nice soft bread. It wouldn't make nice soft pancakes and muffins or cookies. It was kind of stale tasting. I had to cut it with white flour to make it work. So, but nonetheless, I tried to incorporate it in our cooking. I was a cook. I was Southern. I was a from-scratch kind of person anyway. I had 5 young children at the time. We had our share of snotty noses and sickness and in and out of the doctor. And if a stomach bug came around, we all got it. With that many young children, we just seemed to kind of stay sick a lot. Not bad, not as much as everybody else, because we ate pretty good. We really, really did. Because like I said, I was a cook. Dinner at our house was meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans, you know, that I made from scratch and everything. So, but when that journal came into my home and I read that, it all made sense. And so Brad gave me a meal for my birthday, and I'm a pretty all or nothing kind of person, and the meal came into our home, and I decided that we were doing this. I didn't care if we had to gag the bread down. We were doing this, and white flour was never coming into my home again, and it hasn't been since 1991. There's been no white flour, no white bread in our house at all. So other than if my kids bring leftovers from somewhere, let me clarify that. And with teenagers, it does show up, and I'm like, what is this? Who bought this? But anyway, me personally, and making the food for my family. The health of our family changed drastically, immediately, noticeably. We could tell a difference. In the first day, constipation was gone. My energy levels went way up. The first month, I noticed my sugar cravings went away. My dependence on antihistamines went away. By several months, I started noticing that my children didn't have snotty noses, and we would go to church and not get sick. And then after a year or so, I noticed that we didn't need to go to the doctor. My kids weren't sick all the time. Even if a stomach virus did come into the house, we didn't all necessarily get it. It just was who spent the night with the friend that had it. You know, they got it, and the rest of us maybe didn't. This just went on, and now the health of our family just drastically improved. And I became so excited because the bread tasted good. I started making bread for other people, particularly people that maybe had health issues. I would take them bread, and one by one they started coming to me and going, all I changed was the bread, and my cholesterol dropped 85 points in a month. It's got to be the bread. Where can I get a meal? Will you teach me how to make bread? All I changed was the bread, and my energy levels went up, and will you teach me how to make bread? And so we started, my husband and I had actually wanted a business that, my husband was in construction, and we homeschooled our children, and he kept saying, I really want some type of home-based business. I want to start our own business. And he said, I'd really like something recession-proof or depression-proof, which I think is very interesting in the times we live in. And he said, food. People have to eat. And we thought of restaurants, and we thought of other things, but we were like, no, 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 no. And I'll never forget one day, after many people I was trying to make bread for, and I was had just had my 6th child, and I was very weary trying to make the bread for my family and making it for other people. And lights kind of went off, and I met Brad in the driveway one day in October 1992, and I said, you know what? I don't think I'm supposed to make bread for the world. I think I'm supposed to teach the world how to make bread for themselves. And we talked about it, and I said, maybe we should sell meals, and I should teach people how to make bread. And we started thinking it would just be a small home business. And of course, when you sell somebody a meal, they're like, okay, where do I get wheat? And we're like, maybe we should start selling wheat. And we started, looking for wheat sources, and the rest is history. We did this in our home until 1998. And 1998, by that point, I had 7 children, and we live in a 1,300 square foot house, and we had wheat in the carport, wheat in the basement, wheat in the trailer, wheat on the front porch, wheat downstairs, wheat everywhere. We had stuff, and it was all that my daughter Ashley and Caleb and myself and Brad could do to keep up with. And I had a small baby, and we just couldn't keep up with it anymore. And we had a longtime friend, Jim Carpenter, and his wife and I actually went to college together, and they've just been dear friends of ours for a long time. And we incorporated, and Jim came on as our partner, and we moved our business out of our home, and we moved it into a little store on Sugar Pike. Anybody remember the little store on Sugar Pike? And then Y2K came, and we were inundated with people wanting to buy grain, and so we leased a warehouse space up in Dawsonville, Georgia, and then November of '99 we moved into this building. And so here we are. And this was our packaging facility. We were told we couldn't package grain in the southeast because of the moisture and the bugs, and yes, we can. Don't tell us we can't. We can. And we realized right away, of course, we needed to put it in buckets, food-grade buckets that would store here in the humid southeast, bug-laden humid southeast. And this was our warehouse and packaging facility. How many of y'all remember the store up front? The door you came in, that was our store, and the room next door to it. And then I guess, when was it? 2009, I want to say. We were actually in the process of looking at moving our whole location to another location that would have housed our kids' bakery and the bread Beckers and everything. And it just something didn't seem right, and the building next door became available. So we took the 8,000 square feet next door, moved all the packaging next door, and stayed here. Turned it into a store and built our studio. We used to roll that cabinet out there into the middle of the warehouse. Several of my little groupie friends know all about that. And yeah, and the mirror over top, and we just, had to do it out there. But we were really, really, really thankful for what God has done and blessed us with. And I'm very passionate about what we do, because thousands of lives have changed. And you are our best advertising. When your health changes and you see significant benefits and results, you go tell someone else. I'm assuming that's how, those of you that have never been here before, that's why you're here. Someone brought you because the bread changed their life. I can stand here today and tell you we now have 9 children, and we've not had an antihistamine or a decongestant of any kind in 20 years. My children have only needed to go to the doctor 3 times. Oh, 4. Sorry, my Latvian boy had to go 1 time last year with ear infection. So 4 times in the last 20 years. You want the answer to the healthcare crisis in this country is change the food that you're eating. Go back to God's way of eating and doing. And as a researcher and a food scientist and passionately in love with biochemistry and physiology and the way the body works, I do not know of any food group other than grains that will bring such drastic, noticeable health benefits. Fruits and vegetables are wonderful, meats are wonderful, milk and cheese is wonderful, but there is grains, whole grains are the most nutrient-dense food group that God has given us. There's a reason Jesus compared himself with bread, and there's a reason that God told Joseph to store grain. And if you're concerned at all about where our country might be headed, this would be a good year to buy wheat. It is excellent, excellent year. If you want some good food storage grain, this is one of the best wheat crops there has been in a long, long time. And the Bible says, I will fill your barns with the finest of wheat. And I'm not trying to sell you more wheat, but I'm just telling you, just so you know. I don't know where we're headed, but God told Joseph to store grain. And something, just last year, I was rereading that whole story of Joseph, and I looked it back up just a couple of days ago. When Jacob sent his sons down to Egypt to get grain because the famine had spread all over, and Egypt was the only place around that had grain, that had food, he sent them there with other food. Did you ever think about that or notice that? Yes, some of it was spices, but it says produce from the land. So obviously they had something else. They just didn't have grain. I'm thinking they probably had dry fruits and stuff from other years maybe, but that won't sustain your life. Grain, you have to have grain to sustain your life. Deuteronomy 24 verse 6. I love this verse. I find bread verses everywhere, but this one I found in the most least expected places when I was reading the Bible. It's the law. You're going through the law and you're about to get like bored with, okay, I don't want to kill all these animals. But anyway, you start kind of losing it. But all of a sudden, this one verse, Deuteronomy 24, verse 6, it says, it's talking about borrowing and lending. And God had laws for how to do business. So interesting. In those days, if you were going to borrow something from someone, you gave them something of value that belonged to you. Usually your coat or your cloak is what it sounds like. You gave them this as a pledge to say, I'm bringing this back. And typically before nighttime, so you could get your cloak back so you could sleep in it. And so you would give them a pledge. Well, God had a law what you could take in a pledge. And I thought this was so interesting. 24:6 Deuteronomy says, do not take a man's millstone as a pledge, because you would be taking his life. That's pretty powerful verse. So I love what we do. I can't imagine doing anything else. Can't imagine ever retiring. But we appreciate you more than anything, and we want to serve you, we want to teach you, we want to encourage you. Like I said, hope and encouragement, my words for this year. That's what I feel like we need. Sickness and disease, I do not believe has to be as prevalent and as common. You don't have to live this way. And so many things we're being told genetic, or, well, it's just the way of things, or everybody has it. And I'm just here to tell you, it doesn't always have to be that way. And I want to encourage you, I'm getting a little sidetracked here, but this is something I've just really been thinking about. So oftentimes in conventional medicine, they tend to treat symptoms. We know that, all of y'all know that. But you know, we tend to think of these symptoms, oh dear, I've got high blood pressure, oh, I've got high cholesterol, oh, I've got this or that, the other. And we get all depressed because of our symptoms. And yes, some of them can be, you know, a snotty nose was a symptom, and it could be aggravating. I was having to take antihistamines because I couldn't even breathe without them. But I want to tell you something. I want you to start thanking God for those symptoms, because you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And what that symptom is, it's your body telling you that something is not right. So that's your signal to go, okay, this is just my warning. Wouldn't you love it if somebody would go, you know, if before you went through the intersection, a light came on and said somebody's fixing to run the red light and hit you? You know, we love our oil light that comes on in our car that says, you need oil. We love our gas gauge that says, you need gas. Don't we? Don't you praise God for those things that you don't have to guess? That's exactly what a symptom is. So if you're depressed because you have this disease, or because of these symptoms, just start thanking God for those symptoms and go, you know what? There's a way out. This is my body, number one, trying to correct itself, because even sinus congestion, that's from toxins being in your body that aren't getting eliminated through your bowels. So your body's trying to get rid of them, so it makes mucus so you can blow them out your nose. So do you understand? So this snotty nose is not a disease. It's your body trying to get rid of toxins. So do you see what I'm saying? So I just want to encourage you today. I don't know what you're living with or what you're doing, but I want you to be encouraged that your body is not messed up. It's not making a mistake. It's doing what God created it to do, to try to correct what's going on. And you should take that symptom and go, what's the cause? What's the cause of this problem? What's my body needing or trying to tell me? And then seek that answer. Okay? So I hope that you are restored today by all this yummy, delicious soup. Isn't it just, there's something about soup. No wonder they call it restorative, because it just restores your strength, your energy, your vitality. It's just, you know, you don't think of soup as being refreshing, because we usually think of cold, you know, drinks in the hot summer as being refreshing. But there is something about, you know, sitting down and having a bowl of warm, hot soup, especially if you share it with a friend. I've been listening to a CD, and God's just really been giving me this word about hope and encouragement, hope and encouragement. And one of my favorite CDs, it's Danny Gokey. I don't know if any of y'all remember him. He was on American Idol a few years ago, and this one song is, he says, you know, I'm looking out the window of an airplane, and I'm looking down, and everybody's going and rushing and going, and you know, all these streets and cars, and what are we doing? And he said, but the one thing that's important that I've finally determined is the love I have and the love I have to give. And really, we spend so much time fretting over everything and fretting over life and fretting over whatever, when really God loves us so much. We have so much love that we have, and then love we have to give. And he says, you know, it's living life long enough to look back and go, wow, or calling your mom and dad, or hugging your kids, or making a pot of soup and sharing it with a friend, or taking it to a neighbor that maybe doesn't feel so well and restoring them. So I encourage you, spread your bread, share your soup, and restore and encourage and share. I don't want to sound weird or hippie, but share the love. You know, but that's, I mean, what else is there? That's what life is. And so anyway, I hope you've enjoyed today and that you learned something. Don't throw away those onion skins. You know, what's that saying about one man's trash is another man's treasures? And that's what Caleb, he's like, I like your trash. So anyway, but who would have thought that you could have made a nice broth or soup stock just out of the stuff you've been throwing away? So thank you for coming today. How many of y'all are going to go home and make soup tonight? So I've already heard the broth. Okay, all right, now, I don't know. I don't want to offend you. Okay, how many like the wedding soup the best? Okay, I haven't had that yet. The broccoli cheddar. All right, the chicken, the green chili chicken. Well, I think it looks like about even everywhere, or all of the above. Yeah, there you go. There are different soups for different occasions, isn't it? Sometimes you want this or that. God bless you all. Thank you for coming, and we have enjoyed doing this today. Check out our other classes. Be on the lookout for email for our classes coming up in March. March the 3rd is our Irish St. Patrick's Day celebration. Judith McLaughlin will be back with Ashley to teach some Irish goodies. I will be speaking at the North Georgia Church of God Women's Conference. And then we have some exercise classes, not like come and you're going to do exercise. It's educational on teaching you how to stretch, how to eat certain foods to help you metabolize. How many of y'all just nothing you do makes you seem to lose weight or get rid of the fat? Stephen Rankin is going to come in and very, very qualified, show you how to, you know, burn that, get your body burning that fat, stretching, and why exercise is important. Those will be 3 Mondays in March. And then I'll have a getting started class somewhere in, I think, March 24th. So be on the lookout. If you're not subscribed to our email newsletter, go home, get on our website, and get that done. All right? God bless you all. Have a great weekend.